Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we step to main agenda, allow us to thank our support sponsor who have sponsored our today's event. To the operator, please show the sponsorship videos.
The future's in your eyes. I can see the light. The future's in your eyes. I can see the light. It's shining down, those diamonds on the crown. The stars were falling when we were together. The lightning sounds, it shakes beneath the ground. The lightning strikes when we were together, together. I can see you brightly shine away. Hope is rising in the distance. You are in charge, breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. The future's in your hands. I can taste the light. Oh yes, I can taste the light. I see our dreams take flight. I can hold the light. Oh yes, I can hold the light. Open your mind, go on and take control. The story never ends when we're together. I feel the power been rising in my soul. 100 years I always will remember, remember. I can see you right behind the clouds. Hope is rising in the distance. You are the dawn breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. Making our dreams so bright. I can chase the light. Oh yes, I can chase the light. I'll push with all my might. I can chase the light. Oh yes, I can chase the light. I can see you right behind the clouds. Hope is rising in the distance. You are the dawn breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. The future's in your eyes. I can see the light. The future's in your eyes. I can see the light. It's shining down, those diamonds on the crown. The stars were falling when we were together. The lightning sounds, it shakes beneath the ground. The lightning strikes when we were together, together. I can see you brightly shine away. Hope is rising in the distance. You are in charge, breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. The future's in your hands. I can taste the light. Oh yes, I can taste the light. I see our dreams take flight. I can hold the light. Oh yes, I can hold the light. feel the power been rising in my soul. 100 years I always will remember. I can see you right behind the clouds. Hope is rising in the distance. You are the dawn breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance, making our dreams so bright. I can chase the light. Oh yes, I can chase the light. I'll push with all my might. I can chase the light. Oh yes, I can chase the light. I can see you right behind the clouds. Hope is rising in the distance. You are the dawn breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. The future's in your eyes. I can see the light. The future's in your eyes. I can see the light. It's shining down, those diamonds on the crown. The stars were falling when we were together. The lightning sounds, it shakes beneath the ground. The lightning strikes when we were together. I can see you brightly shine away. Hope is rising in the distance. You are in charge, breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. The future's in your hands. I can touch the light. Oh yes, I can touch the light. I see our dreams take flight. I can hold the light. Oh yes, I can hold the light. Open your mind, go on and take control. The story never ends when we're together. I feel the power been rising in my soul. 100 years I always will remember. I can see you right behind the clouds. Hope is rising in the distance. You are the dawn breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance, making our dreams so bright. I can chase the light. Oh yes, I can chase the light. I'll push with all my might. I can chase the light. Oh yes, I can chase the light. I can see you right behind the clouds. Hope is rising in the distance. You are the dawn breaking through the night. Hope is rising in the distance. The future's in your eyes. I can see the light.
Thank you for all the sponsorship who have supported our event today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we step on the following agenda, which is the third plenary session. In this session, we have Dr. Mario Rosario Guaracino, a National Research Council of Italy, and Dr. Muhammad Aziz from University of Tokyo as the keynote speakers. And Dr. Eli Hendrik Sanjaya, SSI, MSI, will be the moderator in this session. For Dr. Eli Hendrik, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi and a very good morning to the presenters and audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Eli Hendrik Sanjaya, and I'll be moderating this session with Dr. Mario Guaracino from Department of Economics and Law, University of Casino and Southern Lazio, Campus for Kara, and Dr. Eng Muhammad Aziz from Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo. In this session, we have two speakers. So the first speaker is Dr. Mario Rosario Guaracino, and the second speaker is Dr. Eng Muhammad Aziz. The two speakers will deliver their presentations and then go to the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please mention the speaker who want to ask. The presentation will take about 20 to 25 minutes for each speaker. And after that, there will be 10 to 20 minutes Q&A session. Please mute your microphone for the daring or online in Zoom room. And then if you have any questions or concerns during the presentation, please use the chat box. Before we get started, I will read a brief biography of our distinguished speaker. Today, the first speaker will be Dr. Mario Rosario Guaracino. Before we get started, I will read a brief biography of. Yes, please. I think Dr. Mario want to have time. Operator, let Dr. Mario to have some message maybe. Dr. Mario, am I audible? Hello. Okay. Oh. Sorry, I just have information from Buchanis that Dr. Mario will play some video for his presentation. Okay, I will continue the biography. Dr. Mario is currently senior lecturer at Department of Economics and Law in University of Casino and Southern Lazio Campus for Kara. He is also an affiliated at the High Performance Computing and Networking Institute of the Italian National Research Council. He leads the Laboratory of Genomics, Proteomics, and Transcriptomics. He also leads the Computational and Data Science Laboratory. He received his bachelor, master, and doctoral degree in applied mathematics at Department of Mathematics and Applied Application, University of Naples Federico II. His research topics are biomedical and bioinformatics applications, data science, and statistical network analysis. Today, Dr. Mario Rosario will be addressing a topic entitled Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence in Bioimaging Application. Without any further ado, please welcome our first plenary speaker, Dr. Mario Rosario Guaracino. Dr. Mario, room is yours.
Hello, everybody. I am Mario Guaracino, and I am very happy to be at this conference. I would like, first of all, to thank the organizers to inviting me to ECOLIST conference, and it is my pleasure to give this talk. Unfortunately, I had to record it given the time difference between Italy and Indonesia. So, I am a researcher at the High Performance Computing and Networking Institute of the National Research Council of Italy, and I am now on leave at the University of Cassino and Southern Lazio. And today I will talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence in biomedical applications. Actually, machine learning and artificial intelligence are two topics that are very interesting, and very recently I got involved in a project in which there was the need of those methodologies and those tools for the analysis of bioimages, in particular of microscopic images. So what I will do today, I will introduce basic concepts of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I will also introduce which are the basic problems in computer vision, and I will make some examples. I will give some examples of biomedical applications. I will highlight available software, and I will detail issues and open problems that are of interest for this community. Actually, defining human intelligence is very difficult, but we can say that human intelligence has the ability to adapt previous knowledge to new situations. So we learn from previous situations, and we apply the knowledge that we get from that, from those situations, to recognize meaning and patterns. So from this we can try to define what is artificial intelligence, in the sense that we say that artificial intelligence aims at replicating those abilities in non-human agents. In this case, we talk about artificial biological intelligence, or in trying to create artificial intelligence, completely new artificial intelligences that are called actually artificial general intelligences. And intelligence, as we know, is based on learning. So we need to learn first in order to recognize the meaning, as we said, in patterns. And in particular, we mimic the human ability of learning using machine learning. So machine learning takes some data sets, some large data sets, and from those it extracts, its algorithms extract useful features, useful variables that can be used to make predictions or to take decisions on some unseen situations. And the big paradigm shift has been in that we don't write any more computer programs to solve problems, to directly solve problems, but rather we write computer programs to train a computer to solve a problem. This shift was introduced already back in the 1950s, but at that time the computing power of of computers were not enough to obtain significant performance. And those type of architectures that are based on neural networks had to wait till 1980s to obtain computers that were powerful enough. And these trained networks usually are very fast in doing inference, so in taking decisions or classify some unseen data, whereas it takes a very long time to train those systems. When we say long time, it means hours or days, and this depends on the number of parameters that we need to train, that might range between a few thousand to millions. Actually, the success of artificial intelligence, and in particular of neural network architectures, is in image recognition and also in other applications, is mainly related with the increase in power of graphical processing units, GPU. Maybe we already know what they are because they are inside every gaming console. So maybe our children have a GPU inside their preferred video game console. But actually they are used professionally inside very powerful supercomputers. And in the bottom right picture on this of this slide, we see Frontier. Frontier is the fastest supercomputer on the Earth, and it is capable of billions of floating point operations per second. So it's incredibly fast. And inside this supercomputer there are millions of GPUs. So we can also understand how difficult is the programming of those architectures. So if we go back to the year 2010, we see that deep learning became a prominent tool for image classification. Deep learning is a particular form of machine learning in which deep neural networks are used. We will see this in the following. And the first achievement of deep learning was obtained back in 2012 during an annual challenge that is called ImageNet. In this challenge, the organizer provides some data set to train an algorithm in order to obtain models that can classify some images that haven't been seen previously in the training phase. And a neural network system called AlexNet back in 2012 won this challenge, making it clear that it was superior in performance to any other existing algorithm for computer vision and image classification. So, but if we compare the conventional workflows with the deep learning ones, we see that there is a completely different situation. And indeed, what we see is that in a conventional workflow, what we do, we have firstly a pre-processing step in which we try to enhance the images, and inside those images, in the next step, we try to determine which are the objects that are contained actually there. And for example, in case of microscopic images, what we do is to detect the cells. So once that we have detected those objects, we will extract some variables, some features related to the morphological characteristics of those objects, to texture or some other statistics that we can compute in order to train a conventional machine learning algorithm so that it can classify new objects or objects that have not been used in the training phase. In a deep learning workflow, the situation is completely different. The various layers of the neural network network starts deciphering the images and constructing some characteristics, some variables that might be that will be used in the final layer for the classification of the objects that are inside the image. And actually, the system in itself does not use any for morphological, texture, or statistics to describe the image and its content, but rather some variables and some characteristics that are not that have no meaning from a human point of view. So the basic neural network architectures are based on a single internal layer. There is one layer that is made up of neurons, of some nodes that are some activating functions, which take as input the images and produce an output. And the way in which we organize the layers makes the network. So the images are encoded using those layers in some vector space. And whereas in deep learning, in deep neural network architectures, there are several hidden layers, and each layer is specialized for a specific task. And also the way in which we interconnect the hidden layer makes a difference. And from the fact, so the depth of the layer is the depth of the architecture is the number of layers. And we call this, when we use a deep neural network, we call it this deep learning. The most common network architecture that is used for image classification is convolutional neural networks. We cannot go into the details of this during this talk, but I provided some links to existing literature, so that if you want to read more, you can go to those links. So in case of bioimaging, actually what we do, we visualize biological processes, and we try to obtain structural and temporal information out of those images. For example, if there are changes in the cells, how the cell move inside over time, and so forth. So this is a very interesting field of research, and novel methods need to be developed in order to address even more and more complex tasks. Actually, there are many efforts are devoted in trying to adapt existing neural network architectures, or to develop novel ones, in order to enhance the classification ability, the segmentation ability of those systems. And there are very few examples actually of application of deep learning in microscopy, and this is why I got interested, and I think that this could be also interesting for you as a research topic. So the basic problems in computer visions are highlighted in this slide. So if we start from the left, we see a picture, and as humans we recognize that there are some astronauts inside the image, and they are in front of a figure of the moon. So in computer vision, the first step, understanding that there are, for example, men inside this image, is called classification. And then, so we generally say that inside this image there are men. But then we go to the step in which we have the object detection. So we try to build some region of interest, some bounding boxes that actually say that inside these boxes there are the men. And then there is a semantic segmentation phase in which we try to understand what are the objects that are inside. So we say, in this phase, for example, in this image, we determine that there are men, but also there is a part of the image in which there is the moon. And then the instance segmentation task consists in actually segmenting segmenting the single objects that are inside this image. So these are the basic tasks that we also encounter when we try to recognize and identify relevant objects in microscopy images. And the problems are mainly related to the fact that the cells are 3D objects, so they might be layering one on top of the other. There might be some noise on the background, for example, due to the illumination that is needed to take the microscopic image, and there might be also large variations in cell size and shapes. And this is used for many different applications that have a meaning from a biological perspective. Once that we have classified the object, then we need to segment and to understand what actually is inside. So in the next steps we actually obtain a clearer segmentation of those objects, and these are divided into classes that represent, for example, the state of the cell, if they are necrotic, so if they are going to die or not, and so forth. And there are many softwares that can be used in order to do this analysis. For example, ImageJ, that is a well-known software for the analysis of images, of medical images, has some deep learning architectures that are already pre-trained and that can be used for some tasks. Now, the problem is very complex because if we only focus on human cells, we have many different types of cells, and these can also be in different states. So what happens is that identifying those cells and understanding in which state they are becomes very complex, especially if the number of cells is very high, and so the objects are very dense within our image. So the artificial intelligence is very good in determining a solution for a very specific problem, but the generalization is somehow more difficult. So if we train a system, for example, on the cells that come from our skin, then this trained system maybe is not capable of determining the characteristics of the cells that come from the liver or some other organ in our body. So this is a major limitation. There are other software like QPath that is used for pathology and histopathology. So it is also using artificial intelligence, and it is free. You can download it and freely use. Another software that is also very interesting is Elastic. Actually, Elastic is an interactive learning and segmentation toolkit that can actually can perform all the phases of an analysis. So it can detect the object, can do the object classification, and then it can go to the semantic part, so it can identify. It is also able of tracking the cells within a time course experiment. So there are some experiments in which the living cells are observed, so they are moving and they are growing, they are dividing, so they are subject to mitosis and so forth. And this software provides some elements that are used actually to perform those tasks. So, for example, it can say this cell in this frame of the video divided and gave rise to two daughter cells that then one, for example, died, and so forth. And this is very interesting from a biological point of view, because those videos can last for hours and then contain tens of cells, and the manual annotation is very daunting. Actually, I have two videos in this presentation in which I explain how the software Elastic can be used for those tasks, but I will skip those and I will make them available in a folder that you can use. So I will provide a link to a folder in which there are those videos and also the presentation, this presentation that I'm providing to you today. Let me see if I can skip. Okay, so nowadays pre-trained artificial intelligence architectures, deep neural networks are available from Zeus. So there are those databases that contain several pre-trained systems. Usually what happens is that we use those pre-trained systems and then we fine-tune the parameters of the architectures in order to solve a relevant problem, a problem that is relevant for us, but is slightly different from those that have been already solved. So, scientists, practitioners, researchers provide those pre-trained architectures, and then we can customize them with another step of training using one of the software that I was showing before, or other software, in order to fine-tune the parameters that compose the deep neural network architectures. What we can accomplish in these ways, for example, to observe some images inside that are given by that have been observed in some experiments, and then we can try to understand if the mitosis, for example, happens too early or too late, given to some drug addiction in the cultured cells, or if there is some error in the mitosis part, so when the cell divides, if it divides in more than two parts, or if the cell dies. And as we can see on the right, this is a system that we have implemented in which we can track the cells, and we can also understand which is the state in which they are, and in case the state is changing, we are able to update this information, thus providing an information that is very important for the biologists. Actually, the architectures to do cell tracking are very complex, and they also need several layers and several modules to be put together in order to obtain what is in the end needed by the biologists. So a file in which all the objects that in every frame are described, and also what is happening in that frame is also recorded in order to obtain a complete view of the experiment in itself. I will also skip this, and I will show in this slide which are the other available software. So, just to conclude, I will. The main problem here is in the objectivity of those analysis, and also in the reliability, because as we said, we need to train our systems, and the training of our system is based on manual annotations, and those manual annotations are very prone to errors and are also subjective. So if two different biologists observe those images, might provide different information, different annotation, and this ends up in biased models that will actually are reliable in detecting biological effects. So one research field, very important research field, is actually how we can handle this bias. So how we can handle the fact that the human that is actually providing the basic information is somehow making some errors in the annotations. There are also other problems that are related to the lack of standard imaging protocols and the huge variability in experimental conditions. So this gives rise to a series of problems when we train our models and we try to apply to different situations. And also the data that is involved is huge, in the sense that we have terabytes of data that represent a single experiment, and we have to go through it in order, we have to partially annotate and then build the model starting from this. Also, I believe that another field of research that might be very interesting is the one that puts together the information that come from microscopic experiments with those that come from next generation sequencing experiments, so what we call omics imaging. So, just to conclude this very short talk, actually we can say that machine learning and artificial intelligence are really changing the way in which biologists and biotechnologists actually analyze their experiment. They process and analyze the experiments. And although there are some a wide range of ready-to-use software tool, still we need to provide tools and methods that might overcome the limits that I was describing. And I think that also a tight collaboration between those that work on bioimages and that from a biological point of view, and those that work on bioimages from an imaging and computer vision point of view, actually should a tight collaboration should be put in place in order to get better results. So it was my pleasure to be with you. If you have any questions, please, you can write an email to me. I will provide links to relevant information, and maybe we can start collaborating on some common research topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mario, for the great presentation about the machine learning and artificial intelligence in bioimaging applications. I think we got new knowledge from Dr. Mario. Okay, now we go to the next speakers. Dr. Eng Muhammad Aziz. Dr. Aziz is currently Associate Professor at Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo, Japan. He received Bachelor Eng, Master Eng, and Doctoral Eng degrees from Kyushu University, Japan in 2004, 2006, and 2008, respectively, in the field of mechanical engineering. He was working previously as associate professor and assistant professor at Tokyo Institute of Technology, researcher at Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo, mechanical designer at Seiko Epson Corporation, and lecturer at Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University, Japan. In April 2019, he was selected as UTokyo Young Excellent Researchers in 2018, promoting him for the current position. He was the president of International Indonesian Solar Association during 2020 to 2022. His general research area are advanced energy system. His research interests include power generations, energy management system, renewable energy, utilizations, process modeling, smart grid, electric vehicle, battery, hydrogen production, storage and utilization, ammonia production and utilizations, heat exchanger enhancements, hydrogen combustion, waste to energy. He has published more than 160 peer-reviewed journals, to 25 books and book chapters, and more than 200 proceedings. In addition, he is also active as a reviewer for more than 60 distinguished journals related to energy research. He also owns Japanese patents related to mechanical movements adopted until today. Today, Dr. Aziz will be addressing a topic titled Realizing the Decarbonized Society through Optimum Utilization of Carbon-Free Energy Sources. Without any further ado, please welcome our second plenary speaker, Dr. Eng Muhammad Aziz. Dr. Aziz, the Zoom room is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Eli, for the introductions, and also thank you very much to all of the community, committee, and also to the participants. It is my honor to be invited and also delivering my talk today. And I'm Aziz from the University of Tokyo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Good morning to all of you. As Dr. Ali mentioned previously, that my talk today will be entitled Realizing the Decarbonized Society through Optimum Utilization of Carbon-Free Energy Sources. I just like to share my screen first. Can you check my slide over there, Dr. Ali? It's fine, right? It looks well.
Yes.
Okay, hopefully. Okay, so before I'm proceeding to my talk today, I just would like to introduce our lab in our university. And this is our lab. Usually we call us the Aziz lab, but it's more focusing on any kind of energy and process integration engineering. So you can access our website, epi.is.uhafentokyo.ac.jb. And also currently we have about 12 regular students and also about 8 visiting students and also internship students, researchers, other things. So in total, in our lab now, currently we have about 21, 22 personals for the research itself. So in case that you are interested for having collaboration with us, it is our pleasure to welcome the collaboration with all of you. So for today, as my background is basically mechanical engineering, and also what we are doing now is currently related to energy systems and also energy conservation systems. Before I proceeded my talk related to the core of my talk today, let me to give any kind of introductions. When we're talking about the energy systems, we are also talking about the society, how far we can shape and also maybe form have any kind of more better society for our futures. So now currently we have 2 different paradigms in our world globally, the Industry 4.0 or Society 5.0. Both of them are basically initiated by 2 different countries. Germany for Industry 4.0 and also Japan for Society 5.0. Although both of them are sharing similar values, but unfortunately both of them also have different backgrounds and also have different values inside their paradigms. So let me to introduce the Society 5.0, in which I believe that our things it match more for the Asian countries, especially Japan and also Indonesia in this case. In Society 5.0, we are focusing is that we are focusing on the development of the civilizations of the humans. So we are starting from any kind of hunting society, then to any kind of agricultures, industrials, information society, and now we are called as the smart society or ultra smart society, which is Society 5.0. And as I just would like to emphasize that in Society 5.0, we are not only focusing on any kind of technological transformations. No, this kind of transformation is only the tools, and it is not the main objectives of our change or our transformations. So the big idea for the Society 5.0 is that we would like to optimize our creativity as the human itself, and how far actually we can have more better community in the futures. So in this case, again, that any digital transformation, any energy transformation, or any kind of university corporate transformation, or etc., basically they are just a tool. This is not the big idea for the objectives for all of us. And the big idea again for the Society 5.0 is that we are not only solving the problems that we are facing today, but also the most important is that how far we can have any kind of added value, or how we can create the value in the community. So correlated with the energy sectors, usually I also mentions about these important three pillars in energy systems that include any kind of energy security, energy equity, and also finally correlated with any kind of environmental sustainability. When we are talking about the energy security, I just would like to mention, underline this because I think this is a very crucial point that we need to understand about, is that when we are talking about the energy security, we are not only talking about the quantity of the energy they can provide to cover the demands of the energy, but actually we are also talking about the quality of the energy that they can provide in real-time manner. So I think in conventional one, we are still, I think including our country also, that we are still understanding that the energy security is only covering any kind of quantity services. So it means that how far the energy providers, they can provide the energy to demand. But again, the idea to provide in real-time matters, the quality, high quality of the energy, and also the balancing service of the energy is still lacking. So we have any big deals in this case. And the second pillar is called the energy equity. Energy equity means over here is that how far actually we can have broader opportunity to all of the stakeholders, not only limited or divided as the energy providers or energy producers and the energy consumers, no. But in the future, because of the massive adoption of renewable energy, we are believing that we must broaden and also spread the opportunity to all of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders can behave in real-time manner or simultaneously to be any kind of energy producers and also energy consumers. So usually now we have the buzzword of producers, of prosumers. It means that in real-time manners, we are behaving as the energy producer and also consumers. The other point is that is correlated with environmental sustainability, but other things, all of us understood well about these ones, but I just would like to underline that it is not only correlated or limited to a CO2 generations or any kind of atmospheric the emissions in our atmosphere, but also we need also to have a balanced quality for our soils, for our air quality, water quality, food quality. So there will be any kind of strong nexus among them actually. So, and also when we correlate this kind of energy, three energy pillars with any kind of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals that we have, I think this is the potential map distributions for this kind of energy pillars and also the SDGs. Yeah, some of them are strongly correlated, but unfortunately also some of them maybe they are still correlated, but it is not so strong. And when we are talking about the energy transitions, because now we are moving from any kind of conventional one, which is basically dominated by any kind of carbon-based fuels to any kind of non-carbon-based fuels. And now we are talking about the energy transitions. So there are four different pillars or aspects in energy transition, including decarbonization in electrification sector. So for any kind of power generation or etc. And also the second aspect is called the decarbonizations, but it is not in power generation. So it is like including any kind of transportations, industrializations or etc. And the third one is, and I think it is not so challenging. It is how well we can improve the energy productivity, the energy efficiency, and also the energy conservations. So I think all of you are also quite familiar with these three buzzwords. But I think they have different meanings or definitions. Energy productivity and energy efficiency usually call about how actually we can maintain the productions while we are minimizing the energy consumptions. But for the energy conservations is that it is more focusing on our motivations, from our will to actually to consume less energy for all of us. So that's quite different definition for them. And finally, in case that we cannot, or maybe it is difficult for us to realize this kind of decarbonization and also energy efficiency, we need to have any kind of scenario in which the scenarios can produce or can minimize the CO2 generation to our atmosphere. So it is not only correlated to CO2, but I think it can broaden the aspect, any kind of greenhouse gases, and also any other balance in our environment. This is some concept about the energy transitions, but I think I just would like to mention some important points correlated to any kind of, as I mentioned previously, also the balance and also any kind of conservation in our environment. And also when we have any kind of transformation, when we have any kind of transitions also, means that there will be any kind of change in our society, in our economy, in our behaviors, or etc. So how far we can flexibly, dynamically, and also adaptively can balance all of the aspects correlated with that. So about the economy means that there will be any kind of established economy before the transitions, and when we would like to move to any kind of new conditions, or we have any kind of transition, means that there will be any kind of strong interest, or to be honest, it is vested interest from any kind of stakeholders. So usually when we are dealing with any kind of vested interest, usually we will face any kind of problems for the change. So we need to be adaptive in this case. How far we can facilitate all the stakeholders to change and also to have any transformations that we would like to lead. And finally, also correlated with the behavior change. The important thing in this case is that all of us must have any kind of ownership, must realize any kind of ownership, and also the responsibility to our systems. So that's very important. So now currently it is important to us to understand that although we are the customer, the consumers of the energy, it doesn't mean that we don't have any responsibility. We need to change our behavior. So usually we are it is correlated any kind of demand response with any kind of real-time pricings or etc. So it means that in case that the conditions of the energy currently is quite critical, maybe at that times we can change our behaviors, we can change our attitude at times, what we would like to do. Maybe at that times we can change our behavior or any kind of demand. And this is the possible transformations in the futures. And now this is the condition that we are living now. We are now having any kind of our generations based on fossil fuels, especially in Indonesia, in our country. But in the future, because we would like to massively adopt renewable energy, and also we need to reduce the dependency on the fossil fuels, means that this kind of baseload generator will be minimized. So we would like to not curtail the renewable energy, and also adopt massively the renewable energy. So it means that the renewable energy, which is fluctuating, especially solar and also wind turbines, I think they will have lower price of the energy. And then it is followed by any kind of more constant baseload generators. And finally, the highest price that can be enjoyed by any kind of fuel is that the adjusting generators. So any kind of services that can provide the balancing service. So it must be responsive, and it must be also quite clean for this case. So I think some biomasses, some hydrogens, and also some energy storage can behave as the adjusting generators. So they can enjoy any kind of higher price of service, higher price of the energy compared with any kind of fluctuating and also constant generators. So I think this is also when we all are focusing on like 50 years or 100 years in the futures. We are not only talking how we can achieve zero carbon in 2050 or 2060, but the important thing is that how we can think beyond that, beyond the zero carbons. So there are some issues in this case, including the optimization of the renewable energy. Now we are thinking that renewable energy will give the solution to all of us. But unfortunately, once we have adopted massively the renewable energy, I believe that there will be any kind of another problems due to massive adoption of the renewable energy. So now currently also we have faced these kind of problems like any kind of concentrated the temperature rise in certain area because of the lower speed of the wind or etc. And also I think in case that we adopt any kind of massive solar panels, I think there will be any kind of environmental change. So we are always thinking dynamically in this case. Don't never be stop or never be steady that we are thinking that the renewable energy will give all the solution to all of us, but we need to be wise and also adaptive in this case. And also the other thing is that the important also is that because the most convenient energy that we can use for our daily life is that the secondary energy source, not the primary energy source. So we can imagine that I think in our homes I think it is more convenient for us to use electricity rather than to use any kind of coal, any kind of wood for our cooking or etc. But also for the fuel itself, I think it is not also convenient to use directly the natural gas or maybe the coals for all of us. But I think it will be more convenient to use any kind of secondary resources, including the hydrogens, ammonia, or etc. in the futures. And also finally, also how we can control the CO2 generation. So CO2 actually now we are trying to minimize its generations. But the important thing is that how far we can control it, and to be positive, to be zero, and also to be negative. And this is some important things that, as I mentioned previously, we need to have any kind of adaptive energy transitions. And the important is that the shift of the consumption is also important thing. So it means that we must improve our responsibility, our ownership to the systems. So it means that we have important roles in the systems. So this is the kinetic community. As I mentioned previously, also that all of stakeholders, whether power generations or energy providers, energy consumers, energy transmitters, distributors, or etc., they can share their big data. Their big data means that their historical data and also their future data. So future data, including any kind of weather informations, any kind of predicted consumptions behavior or etc. So it means that all the stakeholders finally we can forecast accurately the energy that we can have for the next day, for the next week, for the next month, for the next year, or etc. So we can map wisely and also accurately about the energy system that we can have for the next day or etc. So this is some smart energy system. I just would like to skip this one because I think I'm running out of times. So when we are talking about the carbon-free secondary resources, I think we have several options, including the electricity, and also for the chemical energy, we can have any kind of hydrogen and also ammonia, or basically it is hydrogen-based fuels. So when we are talking about the fuels, basically we are focusing on carbons or hydrogens. When we are adopting carbon, means that we are emitting CO2, but when we are adopting hydrogens, we are producing the water. So also another option is connected with the metal fuels like the irons, aluminums, manganese, or etc. So it means that we can produce the heat or any kind of energy from this kind of metal fuels oxidations. And finally, also the heat. So the important aspect is that how far we can produce or generate this kind of secondary energy resources effectively from any kind of primary energy resources, and then how we can communicate or mutually convert them between each kind of secondary energy resource. And finally, also how we can store and also transport them effectively. So this is also mutual utilizations of electricity and hydrogen. Is this examples of things that I have mentioned previously. So I think biomass is also very important. I think most of us also working on these ones. And the important aspect that we would like to have on this one, that the reality is that the biomass itself is, I think, the oldest fuels that we have in our history. But unfortunately, now currently we are still facing the problems connected with this. It is any economic performance of the biomass. So how far actually we can build any kind of scenario to strengthen or to re-evaluate the biomass in this case. As I mentioned previously, that biomass is basically storable, and any kind of service that we can provide, including the adjustings, services, or etc., I think it can strengthen and also can provide any kind of better economic performance for the biomass itself. So I think biomass itself can be massively adopted in the futures. We can imagine that like in some Scandinavian countries, the price of the electricity is very high, about 42 cents or 45 cents per kilowatt hours, and our country is only about 10 cents per kilowatt hour, which is 1/4. So when we have this kind of high price of electricity, means that it is very easy for us to adopt the biomass because we have positive margins during its utilizations. So this is the big pictures about the mutual conversions of the several secondary energy resources, including the electric powers, electricity, and also hydrogens, methanes, and also some artificial fuels, heat, or etc. And this is about the hydrogen and ammonia, but I think I just would like to skip these ones. It can be utilized in broad aspects of life, actually. So including the aviation, maritimes, trains, and also some industrial power generation, or etc. So I'm not talking about the hydrogen for passenger cars, because I believe that electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, will be the winner compared to the hydrogen base. But what is preferred from the hydrogen is that in case that that our transportation systems prefers for any kind of high gravimetric energy density, I think this kind of system will prefer hydrogens compared to any kind of battery. So also another option is how far we can also adopt or integrate the electric vehicles and our energy systems, because as I know that now currently some manufacturers, they are working hard to adopt any kind of solid state battery, and some manufacturer, they have committed to produce massively their electric vehicles using the solid state battery in 2027, 2028. So I think there will be any kind of great change in that time. So it means that also in our country, I think massive adoptions will be followed. So in case that we cannot coordinate the charging and also the chargings of this kind of electric vehicles will be the great load or the large load for our energy systems. And in case that we cannot control it, so it means that it is really hugely burdens our energy systems. So how far we control it? And in our research, actually, we have developed the systems that can control the distributed electric vehicles, and not only control them, but also provide the possible services to them. So this kind of electric vehicles, they can enjoy the new services to support the energy systems. So support the energy system means that not only providing the electricity, but sometimes also absorb the electricity. So there are some possible services of our use, including the transmission, whether it is connected to transmission, distribution, or maybe to the renewable energy. So I think this kind of services usually enjoy any kind of premium price compared with any kind of power generations. So like frequency regulations or voltage regulations in Scandinavian countries, they can enjoy about 10 times, or maybe sometimes it can reach 100 times of the regular price of the electricity. So there are some projects that we have in Japan, and also in Denmark for this case, and I think the Denmark was the largest project that we have in the world. And also the other options is carbon utilization. So carbon is captured. The problem is that how far we can store them or utilize them. Storing carbon means that it is very challenging, because geological storage of the CO2, until now, we cannot guarantee that we can have stable storage for this one. So the big idea starting from 2010 is that how far we can utilize this kind of this spirited CO2. So there are some options in this case, but I just would like to focus on the materialization and also mineralization, because they are able to store and also to store CO2 very in stable manner. And also for a recent case, I think coupling of the forestations in energy transition is also very important. We have about 12 million hectare of forestation potentials. So it means that when I just calculated about these potentials, it is about it is quite similar with the CO2 generated with from our coal power plants
Excuse me,
today.
Dr. Aziz. Sorry.
Yeah,
You have
thank you very
1
much
minute.
for today. It is my last slide actually. So in case that you have some points to be discussed, it is my honor to discuss with all of you. But unfortunately, I think I only have about 10 minutes because I need to move to another campus for another class. Thank you very much for today. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Aziz, as such informative and very interesting presentations about, I think, the world biggest issues, about energy and environmental. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now for any questions from this from the participant or audience. And the first chance I will give to who come in person or offline here. Is there any question? Okay, on the back sides. The committee, please give him mic. Please mention who want to ask.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask Mr. Aziz Muhammad. My name is Muhammad Ainur Ridho. My question is, talking about the SDGs, we actually talking and have a man of a future of the country, of course. But I have a question for energy resilience, especially. What is the possible way to reach this energy resilience based on the current conflict that one of the SDGs scenario is press the carbon emission, but the conflict is still ongoing for itself? That is one question. The second question is, what about the electrical car, such as Tesla? If the lithium ion, the battery itself is soaked, it need purify the resulting emission, and that confront the scenario of SDGs itself that the SDGs must to have a zero emission. Thank you. That is my question.
Sorry, what's your name?
My name is Muhammad Ainur Ridho.
Muhammad Ayub.
Muhammad Ainur Ridho.
Ainur Ridho. Okay, thank you very much, Mas Ainur. Okay, I think the question is already enough, Dr. Aziz. Are you getting it?
Okay, thank you very much, Mas Ridho. Yeah, the first questions, I think it is also quite tricky and also quite credentials. So when we are talking about the SDGs, especially we are focusing on the resilience. Yeah, how far we define the resilience in this case, because the resilience doesn't not only covers our energy security, but also the related to any kind of social aspect, economic aspect, or also etc. So in this case, when we are talking about the energy security, I've mentioned previously that we must have any kind of diversifications. Again, that's physical diversification. So it means that how far we can have any kind of diversified sources of energy. And then also, when we are talking about the resilience, also we are talking about the quality also. Don't mention about the resilience, but it is only limited to the quantity that we have. In case we can imagine is that if we forecast about the quality, like for the electricity, something like that, our systems also will be down, will be shut down. So like will be any kind of blackout, like what really happens in 1999, in 2000, 2001 in California. And that started the idea for the smart grid at the times. So it means that the main aspect in this case, and especially for the energy security, is that yeah, now we are facing about the problems, crisis in the world globally. But things, in my opinions, let us focus in our own country. That's the big idea here of us. So when we are only laying to other countries, I think there will be any kind of not dependencies, but I think we will have any kind of strong resilience for our country. So in this case, how far we can improve the diversifications in our energy systems and also the system for that, whether for storage, for also transmissions, for the distributions. Now maybe sometimes sometimes we heard that, oh, our power generation is sufficient. No, actually, no. That's yes, in case that we just only see the capacity. But unfortunately, when we are talking about the quality, it is still very low. You can imagine that our frequency fluctuation is very high because I missed that. So, so it is very important for all of us. So we are talking about diversification for the energy sources. Also, how far we can strengthen the systems, especially for the storage. You can imagine that until now, we don't have any large energy storage until today. And now, okay, like some energy providers, some energy companies, I don't mention the company names in here, but some energy companies, there are buildings and kind of large scale pump hydro storage. But it is really insufficient. It's very small. The number is very small. You can imagine, like Japan has energy storage of, it is 20% of the capacity, total capacity. You can imagine that. So it means that we can have strong resilience on that. And also about the systems, about the system for transmission, for distributions, not only related to the electricity, but also related to other energy sources. So in case that there is any kind of blackout or system fault in our transmission or distributions, how far we can cover the energy at that times. So we need to think about that. And also the another aspect is correlated with our social and also economic resilience. So now we are still laying strongly on the energy providers. So how far actually as the community, as the citizens of the country, how far we can have our responsibility in this case and also stop behaving to behave as the also prosumers in our energy systems. That are my points for the first point. And the second one is correlated with the lithiums or any kind of battery productions. Okay, we understand that although we are not only limited to any kind of energy storage, especially for the battery productions, but also for any kind of renewable energy production. You can imagine that although solar panels and also hydropowers, you can imagine that this kind of renewable energies, they are also emitting the CO2. Okay, for solar power, I think the greatest CO2 emissions comes from its productions because it uses any kind of silicon wafer. So in the production of silicon wafer, it is really CO2 intensive. And also another aspect is like for the hydropower. Hydropower basically also generate CO2 because any kind of live things in the hydropower, in the dams or etc. So it is not only correlated with CO2 emissions, but also CH4 emission, which is about 21 times of CO2 effect. So it means that how far, it is really difficult to reduce that. But minimally, we can have any kind of significant reductions compared to any kind of conventional fossil fuel-based power generations. So again, correlated also with the battery. Battery productions also produce intensive CO2 intensively. And that's also big concerns. Okay, but in general, when we are talking about the LCA, life cycles assessments for the whole life of the battery, for the whole life of the systems, basically we can have more significant reduce of the CO2. And the important aspect, as mentioned previously, also that how far we can have adaptive change in this one. So we are not thinking that, oh, battery is the solutions, renewable energy is the solutions. No. We are always thinking adaptively, flexibly, dynamically for the futures. I think that's my question, my answer. Thank you very much for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Aziz, your explanation. Yeah, I know that 1 hour is not enough for discussion, but our time is limited. So this plenary session will be end. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our plenary sessions, and thank you so much. And who have some question, I think you can contact him direct by email. Thank you again that the audience and participant for the question and the warmest gratitude to Dr. Mario and Dr. Aziz for the enlightening sessions. I apologize for all my mistakes during the moderating the plenary session. Now moving on to the next session, and I will give the session back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Eli Hendrik. Well, that was our first plenary session from Dr. Mario Rosario Guarasino, a National Research Council of Italy, and Dr. Muhammad Aziz from Universitas of Tokyo. Thank you for the amazing knowledge you've shared.
Now, we step to the next agenda. Here we have a break. For our participants, I would like to remind you that the break is for 15 minutes, and at 10:20 a.m. is the time for the sixth plenary session. And for the online participants, you may not leave this room and you can turn off your camera. Saya informasikan kembali bahwasanya saat ini kita memasuki waktu istirahat, dan untuk waktu istirahat selama 15 menit, dan pada pukul 10:20 akan memasuki sesi plenary. Jadi diharapkan sebelum itu seluruh peserta sudah kembali ke hall. Terima kasih.
Welcome to Universitas Negeri Malang, UM. Located in 3 different places, UM provides a comfortable environment for teaching and learning. The main and second campus are located in Malang, surrounded by educational facilities, places for recreation, sports, and business. The third campus is located in the same area as the Shrine of Sukarno, Indonesia's first president in Blitar, East Java. Established on October 18, 1954, was born with the name of University of Teacher Education, or PTPG. In 1957, it became the Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, or FKIP. Then, in 1963, it became the Teacher Training and Education Institute, or IKIP. Finally, in 1999, it transformed into Universitas Negeri Malang, which is known to this day. Since its establishment until now, has established itself as one of the 12 educational higher education institutions and is included in the 15 best campuses in Indonesia. One of the visions and missions, is to become a leading university and an authoritative center of excellence in the fields of science, technology, and education. Develops a flexible, adaptable curriculum taught by teachers who guide students and provide skills for the future workforce to become active lifelong learners, independent problem solvers, creators of better communities, and bring education to life. educates students across 8 faculties. Also conducts special programs such as postgraduate program and teacher professional program. Has been granted an unggulan or excellent by the National Accreditation Agency of Universities, or BNPT. Furthermore, there are 4 study programs that have been assessed internationally by AUNQA, and more study programs are accredited by ASIIN and ACCA's International Accreditation. As one of the reference universities and a center of learning innovation, continues to develop knowledge and scientific research by providing quality education and training. has also produced many research products that have the right patent, published internationally, and ready to be commercialized. In line with our new tagline, Excellence in Learning Innovation, is the house for top science and technology center in higher education in DLI, or Disruptive Learning Innovation. Disruptive Learning Innovation Center develops innovation in smart learning with research focus on digital transformation on education ecosystem, either in higher education, school, or community, to improve the quality of education service in Indonesia. Many invention and implementation of products resulted from DLI research are expected to support continuous, innovative learning activities. To support the activities of residents in carrying out their daily duties on campus, provides unique and interesting learning environment through great and comfortable facilities to facilitate both academic and non-academic activities. has also made collaborations with many partners in the form of work training in education, research, and community service. Growing rapidly in this millennial era, has the vision to be a higher level institution and a reference university in the field of learning and education. Has always been ready to dedicate itself to be the best university by producing the best human resource. The only one, Excellence in Learning Innovation.
It's here with us again.
Yeah, come on.
What? It's a CAKRAWALA.
Mindset University. People say that the world won't orbit around you, 'cause it's so hard to look up when you're feeling down.
Ain't nothing in this world, paper just how you like it. So don't stop, won't stop till you make yourself proud. Just keep on moving, nothing's gonna stop us now. Let's prepare our future, nothing's gonna wait. Let's make our way brighter, gotta let it shine. We'll be up in the sky. Come on, baby, step inside my world. See how now we're turning and won't stop. 'Cause we ain't dreaming, we make it real. It's time to make a change. See, you're trying to get the number one, but don't forget what you want. Keep your hope high, make every time count. Get that confidence build up and know what you are for. There'll be bumps on your way, 'cause perfection is so quick to pour. Nothing's gonna do it if we ain't. The art of achieving is when we are learning all day, learning all night. We'll shine, and you'll see me right. Just keep on moving, nothing's gonna stop us now. Let's prepare our future, nothing's gonna wait. Let's make our way brighter, gotta let it shine. We'll be up in the sky.
As the world keep moving, people will always keep changing. So stop daydreaming about your broken heart. Set your goal up high, then you'll see the light shining brighter than the sun.
Let's clap together and sing along. Come on, baby,
Step inside my world. See how now we're turning and won't stop. 'Cause we ain't dreaming, we make it real.
it's time to make
A change. Come on, baby. Step inside my world. See how now we're turning and won't stop. We ain't dreaming, we make it real. It's time to make a change. Come on, baby. We're turning and won't stop. We ain't dreaming, we make it real. It's time to make a change.
It's time to make a change. Come on, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda will be start in a minute. Please come back and turn on your camera. Diperhatikan untuk para partisipan segera memasuki ruangan. Sekali lagi, diperhatikan untuk kepada partisipan segera memasuki ruangan dan untuk para peserta yang berada di Zoom segera mengaktifkan kamera. Terima kasih.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we step to the next agenda, which is the fifth plenary session. In this plenary session, we have Dr. Prasita Prabhakaran from University Technology Malaysia and Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu from Monash University as the keynote speakers, and Dr. Muh Ade Arta Sasta SSI as the moderator in this session. For Dr. Muh Ade Arta Sasta, the time is yours.
Cek. Bismillah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning, everyone. First, I would like to say thank you very much for the committee for having me and our honorable and our respectable Professor Dr. Yayu MSI as a chairman and as a head of Department of Biology, and also our honorable to our speakers in this session, Dr. Prasita Prabhakaran and Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 5th International Conference, Life Science and Technology. Now we are in the 5th plenary session and we have two speakers, as I mentioned before, Dr. Prasita Prabhakaran and Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. Before we start, I would like to greet to our speakers. Hello, Dr. Prasita.
Hello,
Are you?
can you hear me?
Okay, yes, your
Okay.
voice is clearly enough. Welcome, Dr. Prasita.
Thank you.
Okay, and second to our speakers, Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. Hello. Hello, Dr. Mulyoto. Do you hear my voice? Okay, I think Dr. Mulyoto has not joined it yet. Okay, for your information, ladies and gentlemen, we have a discussion session after two speakers has presented their presentation. You can directly ask your question by raising your hands, both of online or and offline participant, and direct also type your question on the chat box for online participant. All right. Without further ado, Dr. Prasita, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. I'll just share my slides.
Okay. Okay. Before you start your presentation, please, operator, show us the profile of the Dr. Prasita. Operator. Okay. Okay, Dr. Prasita Prabhakaran is a lecturer from University Technology Malaysia. Okay, from Department of Bioscience, Faculty of Science and University Technology Malaysia. Her expertise on cancer biology, cancer therapeutics, and cancer stem cells, and her current publication on the biointerface research and applied chemistry with the T cell fabrication and characterization, polycaprolactone with retionic acid and cerium oxide for anti-cancer application. All right, Dr. Prasita, are you going to screen your presentation by yourself, or operator can help you?
I'll share it.
Okay. Thank you very much for your information, Dr.
No
Prasita. Please welcome Dr. Prasita. Time is yours.
All right. Okay, thank you. So a very good morning to everyone. And I would like to thank the ICALIS 2022 committee for giving me this opportunity to share some of my work done at the Cancer Research Lab at the University of Technology, Malaysia. So my work mainly revolves around breast and cervical cancer. And I also do work with synthetic drugs and also plant-based extracts and bioactive compounds. So, but this talk, I would just focus on the breast cancer part. Okay, so my focus would be on a combined therapy between cisplatin via a green anti-cancer approach, meaning we use a plant or a herb extract in the combined treatment. Okay. So as if you know, okay, since 2020, breast cancer has emerged as the most common cancer diagnosed globally. So it was second up to 2019, but then it emerged as first. So it has gone up. It means there are much more cases of breast cancers now than before. Okay, and it is also the topmost cancer among females with the highest mortality rate globally as well. So breast cancer can be classified into 4 major subtypes. Luminal A, which is the least invasive form, and then followed by luminal B, HER2 positive, and also TNBC. So luminal A, B are considered the least invasive form of breast cancer, whereas HER2 is much more invasive, but these 3 subtypes have somehow much better prognosis, and they are treated via targeted therapy as they do express certain receptors. However, for the TNBC, which is the most invasive form of breast cancer, is known to be a very difficult to treat cancer. Okay, it lacks all the 3 receptors, and hence it makes it very difficult to target and eradicate this particular tumors. And also, the TNBC is or comprise about 15 to 20% of the total breast cancer cases. And sadly, it affects the younger generation. It's mostly diagnosed among the younger women below the age of 50 years old. So we can see that there is definitely an urge to find out ways to eradicate or to treat patients with this TNBC. Okay, now, so let's see, why is TNBC so invasive? So first of all, TNBC is highly metastatic, which means after a chemotherapy or after a few cycles of chemotherapy, a relapse is quite common within a short period of time, or there is very small cancer-free period in between before a relapse happens. And then the second one, as I mentioned earlier, it lacks this important receptors, which means it is very difficult to be targeted. And yeah, there is a lack of targeted therapy for TNBC patients as well. And next, a very important point to be noted is that TNBCs are known to be enriched with dysfunctional cancer stem cells. So what is cancer stem cell? We will look at it in the next slide. So the presence of this cancer stem cells within the tumor makes the TNBC very highly proliferative and chemo-resistant to most drugs. So with all this, TNBC is known to be the most invasive form of breast cancer. It's also the most difficult to treat breast cancer, and it also has the highest mortality rate compared to the other breast cancer subtypes. So cancer stem cells comes from the word stem cell. So we know that stem cells are required in our body for self-renewal, for wound healing, and so on. So it's supposed to be good for us. However, in contrast, when you have the word cancer in front, so it makes it cancer stem cells, meaning it has got similar properties or characteristics as the stem cells, but in a very negative way, which means it actually promotes proliferation of the tumor cells. So it is basically a subpopulation within the tumor, which is responsible to initiate this tumorigenesis by undergoing self-renewal and differentiation. So the cells, the tumor cells keep proliferating without a stop signal. So these cancer stem cells are known to be in a dormant state, and it resides happily within the cancer stem cell niche. So a lot of studies currently are trying to target this cancer stem cell niche and, of course, the cancer stem cell itself in order to break the bond or its ability to self-renew and to keep proliferating. Okay. So the presence of this subpopulation within the tumor is known to be causing drug resistance, enhanced metastatic ability, and also residual disease after an initial successful therapy. So the therapy, the chemotherapy may look successful at the initial state, but however, with further cycles of chemotherapy, there is always acquired resistance. So it ends up unsuccessful. So the presence of this cancer stem cell is also one of the major causes of cancer recurrence and failure in most treatments in TNBC patients. So as I mentioned earlier, current effort or various studies are being focused at identifying ways or strategies to target the cancer stem cells and also its microenvironment. So in general, triple negative breast cancer patients are commonly treated via surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy, or a combination of this. For chemotherapy, there are a number of drugs which are commonly used for TNBC, and often it's used in a cocktail of these chemotherapeutic drugs. And of these, the cisplatin, or a platinum-based drug, is quite widely used, as TNBC have shown significant sensitivity towards this platinum-based cisplatin drug. So what is cisplatin? Cisplatin is the very first metal-based anti-cancer drug, which is in existence for more than 4 decades now. And it is widely used in treating various solid cancers, including female cancers such as breast, ovarian, and cervical cancers. So basically, cisplatin, it works by interfering the DNA activity by forming adducts on it, where it causes a cytotoxic lesion and prevents DNA repair, consequently causing cell death. However, recent studies have shown that cisplatin may also have different ways or mechanism of action in treating TNBCs or any cancers which are actually enriched with this cancer stem cell. So it may not just induce apoptosis, but it could work in a different way. So our aim, this project is aimed at a combined therapy in which a green approach is introduced, where cisplatin is combined with a plant-based agent or extract in order to see how it helps, one, by reducing the dosage of cisplatin, because at higher dosage, cisplatin is known to cause very adverse side effects and also can be very lethal. And of course, acquired resistance is another thing. So commonly, various treatments in relation to cisplatin is done in a combination, as I mentioned earlier, a cocktail of chemotherapeutic drugs are given. So now our project will be is actually focused on cisplatin and a traditional herb known as Plinacanthus nutans. So we use the extract to examine its effect in combination with cisplatin. Okay, so this herb is commonly used where people actually boil and drink its juice, they eat it as a herb itself, as a leaf. And it's actually quite abundantly found in the Asian countries, and it's also known with different names according to where it originates. So in Malaysia, it's also known as Sabah snake grass. Probably you all have heard it. Okay, so it is definitely more safe to consume as it has got less or minimal side effects as it is plant-based compared to synthetic drugs such as cisplatin. So recent studies have shown that the extract or this herb has cytotoxic effect on various cancer cells, which can be correlated with the presence of various phytochemicals in it that are able to target numerous metabolic and cellular pathways in cancer cells, including embryonic stem cell pathways, which actually control or maintain the cancer stem cells. So our project was aimed at studying the effect of this combined treatment in 2 different TNBC cell lines. One MDA MB231, which is supposed to be the most invasive form, and MDA MB468, which is also invasive, but much lesser than the first one, and it is much more differentiated compared to the 231. So my talk will just focus on the first one, which is the least differentiated and most aggressive form of triple negative breast cancer. So we have looked at the effect on the cell viability, proliferation, ability to induce apoptosis, and the ability to inhibit or affect the invasion activity on these cells, and then how it affects certain markers at the protein and gene level. So the first figure here, we can say, or we can conclude or say that the drugs or the agents used here, cisplatin and C-Newton, so the singular and combination, had a very dose-dependent effect on the cell viability and also cell proliferation. However, we can see that the singular treatments are not as powerful or significant as the combined treatment. And what's interesting to note with the singular treatment is that we see a further reduction in the proliferation capacity compared to the reduction in cell viability. So with this, we assume that some cells do die, probably the drug is too potent or too cytotoxic towards some cells. As we know, breast cancer is a heterogeneous disease. So it has got cells which are least differentiated to very differentiated. Okay. And the remaining cells appears to be still viable. However, we can see that it has probably reduced its capacity to proliferate. So that's where we see a further reduction in the proliferation rate. And on the other hand, for the combined treatment, we can see that both reduction of viability and proliferation are reduced at a similar level or rate. So this may, we can assume that probably with the combined treatment, it was sufficient enough to sort of induce cell death, probably could be via apoptosis. So we see that it is reduced at the same time. And we can also see the difference in changes in cell morphology from the control, which is in stellate shape. And then you see how they change when they are treated with cisplatin, C-Newtons, and also in combination, we see the cells are more rounded here and there. So this could also correlate with the figure 1C, saying that it could be undergoing, partially undergoing apoptosis or cell death. So to see how this combined effect actually react or interact, we studied the interaction of this cisplatin and C-Newtons. So with this, it was interesting to see that at a fixed concentration of cisplatin at 3.05 microgram per mil and various concentration of C newtons, at the lower concentrations of C newtons, we see that there was an antagonistic effect. So this could be because the concentration of C newtons was not sufficient enough. Instead, it sort of, retracted, or they worked in an antagonistic manner. However, we see that with increasing concentration of C newtons, there was the shift from antagonism to synergism. So we can say that the significant concentration of the combined drug was more towards synergistic effect. So the next thing that we did was to see if the singular treatment and the combined treatment were exerting different, possibly different mechanism of action. So what we did was to see if these treatments could induce apoptosis. So we examined the activity of caspase 3,7, which are known to be executioning caspases and are supposed to be highly elevated during apoptosis. So here we have Taxol, which is a positive control of apoptosis. And then we have the untreated cells, which has been normalized to 1%, taking into consideration of normal apoptotic cells. And then we also tested with the IC50 concentration of cisplatin, C newtons, and the combined concentration of the combined treatment. And here we can clearly see that there is a spike in activity of caspase 3,7 with the combined treatment, but negligible change with the singular treatment. So once again, these can also be supported with the previous finding, where it appears that the singular treatment do not really pose an apoptotic or cell death inducing impact. However, it probably just reduces its proliferative capacity. So that's why you do not see an apoptotic induction here. So anyways, in order to confirm this, we also studied the invasion or metastatic assay to see if there was an impact, if the drug combination or the singular treatment could actually reduce the metastatic ability. So yes, it did reduce the metastatic abilities, but at different rates or percentage based on the treatment given. So once again, we can see that in correlation to the upregulation of apoptotic activity, we could also see with the combined treatment significant or the best reduction in the metastatic index. So this would say, as we see that with the increase of cell death, we also see that most of the cells are not able to metastasize, or the remaining cells are probably limited with its metastatic ability. Whereas for the singular treatments we see at different concentrations, this could correlate with figure 1A, where we see that most of the cells are actually not dead, but they have limited proliferative as well as metastatic ability compared to the combined treatment. So with that, we also thought it would be nice to actually see what happens with certain markers expressing to see if it is actually possessing cancer stem cells or not, or whether it is differentiated. So we thought we could actually see the expression level of two markers, which is one CD49F, which is a cancer stem cell marker known to be expressed well in a TNBC, and also CK18 or cytokeratin 18, which is an epithelial differentiation marker. So generally, we see that in the untreated cells, we see they express high amounts of CD49F and low amounts of CK18, which indicates that those cells are possess higher cancer stem cells, and also they are less differentiated. But upon cisplatin, IC50 cisplatin treatment, we can see a significant reduction in the CD49F expression and an upregulation of CK18. So we can see that cisplatin somehow directly interferes with this marker and also probably the pathways which we need to confirm via further studies. And interestingly, for C Newtons, when cells were treated with the IC50 concentration, we do not see any significant reduction here, but there is an increase in the differentiation marker, but much lesser than cisplatin. And for the combination, we can see that again, there is a reduction in the CD49F and an upregulation in CK18. However, the increase in the differentiation marker is much lesser than the singular treatment. So once again, we can correlate with the previous data where there's not many or many cells surviving. So we don't see much of an increase in the differentiation marker. And also that the reduction in CD49F here could be because of the presence of cisplatin and not C Newton. So C Newtons could have an indirect effect on CD49F. We don't know, but yeah, further studies are required to confirm that. So now that we had examined the protein expression, so the next was to actually see how certain genes were regulated at the gene level. So here what we did was we examined two cancer stem cell markers. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, your time remained 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah, sure, I'm almost done. Okay, so we tested CD49F and KLF4, which are cancer stem cell markers, and also a metastatic marker, KLF4, and then two differentiation markers, keratin 18, epithelial differentiation, and beta tubulin, which is a neural differentiation marker. So with the CD49F and keratin, we saw quite similar effect in the protein expression as well. And again, we can see that there is a spike here with C Newton's treatment. So that could actually indicate that C Newtons does not directly interfere with CD49F, but probably at a post-transcriptional or post-translational level where it modifies, epigenetic modification takes place. But yeah, we need to further study to confirm that. And what's interesting here is that we see a spike in KLF4, which is supposed to be a metastatic marker. However, studies have mentioned that KLF4 can have dual role in which it could work in an oncogenic activator way or as a repressor, tumor repressor. And it's also important to know that KLF4 usually interacts with NANOC, a different oncogene, and also a transcription factor in order to maintain its stemness, to prevent differentiation and to enhance proliferation. So this statement is quite relevant with our data or findings because MDA231 cells do not express NANOC SOX2 or OPT4, which are all severe oncogenes. So we can assume that with the absence of NANOC, KLF4 in triple negative had taken a shift from being oncogene activator to a tumor suppressor, and the spike here is correlated with induction of differentiation and limitation in the proliferation and metastatic ability. So yeah, we just propose a model based on the findings we have that the singular treatment would actually cause cell death via apoptosis in the non-cancer stem cells, but induce differentiation in the cancer stem cells. And with the combination, so we have cisplatin as the first agent here, it would actually help to induce differentiation of this cancer stem cell population, making it more susceptible to further treatment and also more sensitive to the second or the third treatment. So when we treat the cells with C Newtons, we actually see that enhanced cell death or via apoptosis takes place, which we can agree that cells, the differentiated cells are more sensitive and susceptible to the next treatment. So yeah, with that, so this is the conclusion. And yeah, so it appears that the combined therapy of cisplatin and C. newtons could be a potential therapeutic option in the treatment and management of triple negative breast cancer. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention. And I would like to also thank ICOLIS once more and acknowledge UTM, the Cancer Research Lab, Faculty of Science, UTM, and also the Malaysian Ministry of Higher Education for funding this project. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please give applause to Dr. Prasita, ladies and gentlemen. And Dr. Prasita, please keep staying with us because we are going to the next speakers.
Okay, sure.
Dr. Mulyoto.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll just stop
Dr.
sharing.
Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu, do you hear my voice? Hello, Dr.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much for your confirmation, Dr. Mulyoto.
Thanks.
Okay, next speakers is Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. He is Indonesian actually. Dr. Mulyoto, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, before you start, I will read your profile before. Please, operator. Okay. Okay, Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. Yeah, as I mentioned before, he is Indonesian actually. He is a lecturer in obstetrics and gynecology, Monash taught in Monash University. His expertise on animal physiology and his current publication on Veterinary World 2022 with the title Effect of Follicle Stimulating Hormone on zygote oocytes maturation and embryonic development post in vitro fertilization. All right, please welcome Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. Time is yours.
Thanks to the moderator and also the audience for this ICOLIS 2022. I would like to share my screen.
Oh, okay. Are you going to?
Yeah, I can share my screen. I'm good with that. I got good connection. Okay. My title is about the life between Jurassic Park and dining table. I like to show you how reproductive activity and technology will impact the availability of the animal in the world, and of course, what we eat today on the table. So, I'm working at Monash University, Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and it's been there since 1998. I just retired for my other job in Indonesia as a lecturer at Jenderal Sudirman University. So what's happened is, if you're talking about reproduction, is all living organism can be survived in the world if they can pass through any environmental issue. Like if you look at dinosaurs, has been extinct from the world because even though they reproduce very well, but they can't survive the climate change million years ago. On the other hand, there's another animals that now been looked after by human, or either the domesticated animal or wild animal not still available in the world. Like if you look at any endangered animals are also still in the world. Those animals capable to keep their life or their not extinct, we call it their condition in the world, because first they can survive any climate change or any environmental change and survive from human interference. The second one is they continuously to reproduce themselves. Like we know the animal in the world, if you look at, we're talking about monkey in Java or any rabbits or wild boar, wild buffalo in Australia, we try to hunt them, they can reduce the number because the reproductive activity is very high. So it's very hard for us to eradicate or reduce their number in the world. On the other hand, some animals been properly looked after by human, like farm animals, pets, and everything. We try to keep them alive. We try to keep them reproduce so we can get many benefits for them. People have been farming the cattle from 10,500 years ago, farming sheep from 11,000, chicken 8,000, horse 6,000. It shows us that human being interfere with those activity in the animal. However, some other animal we need to keep the numbers increase because we need them to be used by us. Some other we need to cut it down. For instance, pest animal such as rat, mice, or any other insect, mosquitoes. We try to buy insect sprays at home, try to get rid of them, reduce the number. And there's another way of human being interfere with the animal condition. I mean, yeah. So based on that one, today we live in the world which is like, maybe, I don't know, this morning you have a breakfast with scrambled egg, with sunny side egg, or you have a fried chicken or rendang or rawon or anything. Those products come from these animals. So if we try to distinguish between reproduction and sex, it is clear that sexual activity in the wild or in nature is related with reproductive activity. However, some people look at sex, a human being look at the sex as not reproductive activity per se, but they look at it as a pleasure. So now within human being, some people get stressed because they've been having sex, but they cannot reproduce. Or some other, they want to have sex, but they don't reproduce. So this end up with the issue like people having infertility treatment. The infertile couple try to have a sex as many as they can, but because their condition, they cannot produce any pregnancy and giving birth to the children. On the other hand, some people may have to terminate their pregnancy because they're having sex, but they don't reproduce. It's common, like then people in Indonesia call it like a free sex, sex papers or whatever. And so we look at sex as either for pleasures or a tools, while reproduction is supposed to be the end point after any sexual activity. So sexual activity usually start with a bonding connection between male and females, because otherwise they can't do anything, or if they're not there is no bonding between two individuals, then we call it as a rape. Sometimes we see a sex without reproduction without sex. For instance, now quite common in the world that people having like sperm donors, egg donors, embryo donors. There's another pattern of reproduction within human being without sex. Learning from what happened in the animal, we saw that in the animal we've been applying reproductive technology. So the reproductive technology basically is aiming to let the infertile couple, in this one, to conceive and having healthy babies. But once as I mentioned earlier, sex of always reproduction and reproduction always sex, so they become an independent parameters in between. So some people move with sex from reproduction and they want to reproduce without any sex. Let's look at what the condition in the animal. When the animal is doing their natural reproductive activities, they see there's a male and female, like the cows and the bulls, or the ducks and the ram, the mares and the stallion, the chicken, the poultry and the rooster. They're having sex. So once they have a sex, means they're ready to reproduce. This is in human condition. That's why in animal condition. Sorry, so in animal, we recognize as what we call it a breeding season. Breeding season is the time when the animals come to breed, means come to their sexual active, and then they start doing their sexual activity to produce their offspring. On the other hand, with the human technology, they allow us to put like what we call it assisted reproductive technology. Why are we doing that one? That's why I mentioned sometimes we need sex to reproduce, but sometimes we want to reproduce without any sexual activity. If you look at in the previous picture, we know there need to be two individuals in the same place, same time, they're doing their sexual activity, they can reproduce. Later on, around in the 17th, 18th centuries, where Lazarus Spallanzani found the semen, the ejaculate from the dog, producing moving stuff. At that time, Lazarus Spallanzani thought that the sperm is a complete individual until we put the sperm into the uterine. In fact, later on we found out that the sperm is only half part of the individual and need to be inserted into the uterine to match with the egg to create a normal individual. So when Ivanov around 1920, he started in 18, he collected semen from the bull, and then they put the semen into the estrus cows. Then this technique, we call it artificial insemination, or in Indonesia known as inseminasi buatan. So in this situation, one ejaculate can be used to inseminate more than one female. While if you look at on this picture, you will see that one ejaculate only can be used for one individual. So it's big efficiencies in the reproductive activity from the normal natural mating into just artificial insemination. If you look at now, in Indonesia, Malang is just close to Singosari. In BIB Singosari, or Singosari Artificial Insemination Center, one bull, when they give an ejaculate, they can produce easily 300 to 500 straws. It means one ejaculate can be used to inseminate about 300 to 500 cows. Then the technology is changing. Instead of fresh semen, they move to frozen semen, which is in 1949, Chris Paul and his team in UK, accidentally they found out that bull semen, after frozen in 10% glycerol, they can be reanimated, retrieved, and back to life. And they can be used for artificial insemination. So if you look at this one, means low temperature not always kill the individual or the cells, but if we treat them properly, we can retrieve those cells or sperm back to life after frozen storage in liquid nitrogen or minus 196 degree. This technology, this artificial insemination in frozen semen, stay in the world until many, many years, till they found out that apparently they can collect the egg from the, they can collect more than one embryo from one female. So what they do is they stimulate the female cause, or female cause in this case, to make this cause capable to produce more than one oocyte per superovulation. So Willett and Hassler back in 1951, he stimulated the cause and then he inseminated the cause with the semen. And then at day 7 after insemination, he tried to collect the embryos from this cause and then transfer the embryo into another cause. So we know that this technology has met or multiple ovulation and embryo transfer. Once it's getting better, they got a new technology to freeze the embryo. So Wilmot and Rawson in 1973, instead of transferring fresh embryo, which is they need to be the recipient just nearby, they can't freeze the embryo, so the recipient can be anywhere and the transfer can be done anytime. This another steps from fresh AI to frozen AI to multiple embryo transfer, no frozen embryo transfer. What's the advantage on being freezing the embryos? When we freeze the embryo or the semen, we can carry the embryo or semen anywhere in the world, or we can keep it as long as we want. So this cryopreservation technology will carry off the barrier of distance, time for us to capable to do reproductive activity in animal. The other technology has been developed after that one is in vitro maturation. So Dr. Trex, Benjamin Brackett and Susko Paris in 80s, they collect the oocyte from either adult cows or from a calf or even from ovarium collected from abattoir, from the dead cows. So after the cows been died, we've been slaughtered, we're still capable to develop an embryo from the cows. So this technology developed in vitro maturation, which is Brackett and Susko Paris found the protocol to do IVF. So now the technology is getting better. Not just we need the sperm, the egg from, but we can also use any material from the dead animal to produce an individual. Combined with frozen embryo transfer, now embryo transfer or selling embryos become a big business in the world. Why? Because people can easily buy an embryo from other countries. Like if you a few years ago, Indonesian government bought a Belgian blue embryo from Belgium, and they bring it from Belgium to Indonesia to Cipelang, and then they do embryo transfer in Cipelang, and they got Belgian blue born, calf born from any local cows from Holstein cows. So these technologies allows us to do all without any limitation. Now, those technologies are known as a generative reproduction. Why? Because we still need the sperm and the egg, the sperm from the male individual and the egg from the female individual. Since the born of Dolly in 1996, they're all changing. Now, some people start doing reproductive techniques or reproduce any animals without needing any sperm nor oocyte from live animal. So this situation make a breakthrough, big breakthrough, which is people think they are now we playing gods, we doing something wrong, so people can be cloned like a photocopying and everything. There's still pro and contra towards the technology. So I try to recall you a little bit the story about Dolly. Dolly is a sheep born in UK in Babram Institute. The cell that generated to create Dolly was obtained from memory cells. From the memory cells, that's why they call it a Dolly, because they represent Dolly Parton, the famous singers. They grow the cells in the dish, and then they also try to get the egg from another sheep, another use. Now, I mentioned that on non-generative reproduction or cloning, we do not need oocyte or sperm. Then why we need the egg? We need the egg as a nest or a place to grow. So the egg that we use for cloning is the host for the cell, is the enucleated egg. Why? Because the genetic material was kept in the nucleus. Some people can argue, hang on, sorry, there's mitochondrial DNA in the cytoplasm. Yes, it is, but the impact is minimal compared to the cells or the genetic material in the nucleus. So it looks like an empty egg, empty shell. Then we put the cell into this empty egg. Then we grow the egg as a normal embryo culture up to blastocyst. When they grow to blastocyst, we put into the surrogate or recipient, then let them get pregnant, then born dolly. This experiments not just once off or twice, 3 times. To create one dolly, they've been transferring thousands of embryo. And to create thousands of embryo, we've been trying to do enucleation and cloning more than 10,000 eggs. So it's not a shop or one egg job. Once we develop cloning, then we know that, okay, we can get something. No, it come up another one, whether therapeutic cloning or reproductive cloning. The dolly itself, we call it a reproductive cloning because they try to multiply or reproduce the animal. The reproductive cloning in some countries become a commercial activity. There are some company in Korea, they offer a service to clone your pet, like if you got dog or cat, they die, then what you need is get the tissue from that cat or dog, send it to them, and they grow the tissue into cells, then they transfer into the empty egg. Then a few months later, you got a copy of your pet. The problem is that copy, I mean, it can be the copy, the age of the copy is the age of the animal when we collect the tissue. So no more young animal, the same as dolly. Dolly spawned from the tissue collected from, I think, 6-10 years old sheep use. So when dolly spawned, she already got 10 years old on their back. The second one is, okay. So once the technology is going, apparently they found out that we don't need to use mammary cells. Any cells, any fibroblast can be converted for cloning as long as they treat it like now we know that stem cells cloning and everything. So the second one is therapeutic cloning. Therapeutic cloning is quite new in the world. In the short way, we call it as a creating a spare parts. It can be someone that not feeling well or someone still young, they want to replace their organ or to regenerate their organ. So what do they do when they're young and healthy? They get some tissue from the skin or the body and then grow them, and then whenever they need it, they can put the cells into an empty egg and grow into what we call it stem cell. So then we get the cells that can be used to replace the organ that fails to, or unhealthy organ or organ that not sick. So those for therapeutic cloning and reproductive cloning is not been, in some countries they're legal and they can be offered commercially. In some countries still banned, but some other countries they're not clear. We know that some people producing a service will be selling a stem cell, and then we don't know what cell they sell, and then how did they develop the cells. I need to be clear and well known by the user. It's been issue anywhere in the world that people selling stem cells, or some clinicians, some clinic that try to make stem cell. Now, once we got where those are, we start doing something that probably is a bit extreme. Some people try to bring the old days back, not mean as a memory, but some people try to recreate some mammoth or Tasmanian tiger. Mammoth's been done by many companies in the world. There's a big company in United States that tried to clone the mammoths based on the frozen tissue they found it in Siberia. While Australian scientists, starting from last year, Andrew Pass from the University of Melbourne, he tried to recreate as what we call it Tasmanian tiger. Tasmanian tiger is marsupials, but this animal is a carnivores. So we try to get that one from the last Tasmanian tiger found in the zoo and then died around 1950s, and they try to get the cell, the DNA from the animal, and then recreate the DNA from this animal to make it exactly same as what Tasmanian tiger does or have, and put it into another egg. Then they hoping in another, probably not in the next year, but 5, 10, 15 years, they can develop a Tasmanian tiger. So in the animal reproduction, we always say, oh, we want more animals. We want more. Like the issue in Indonesia at the moment is like the price of the meat increased, the price of the egg increased, the milk too hard to get. So for human welfare, we start talking about animal reproduction again, especially from domestic or farm animals. So reproduction itself has played critical roles in livestock. Why? Because if there is no reproduction, the number of livestock can be decreased, and we don't have cattle, sheep, or goat anymore. So human being with the technology try to increase the number, they try to make it efficient, easy, and cheap. On the top of that, we start talking about the genetic quality. We see the animal on the wheel or on the wild or on the farm, they just living like that, limited feed and everything. And some people start talking, we want the animal that having a daily gain at least 5 kilos per day. And then now we got the good animals. So we go, I want the animal with the good quality of meat, good quality of milk, egg, and everything. People start producing omega-3 egg. They modify the food for the chicken so their egg can produce more omega-3. Or with Wagyu, they gonna have like a cattle with the good marbling to get a better taste and increase the price. So people look at like genetic in the offspring, or they try to bring the genetic to offspring to get a better quality product. So when we're talking animal reproduction, we want everything for human consumption. We're gonna bring in more on the plate. So reproduction can increase animal population, means we can get easier access to animal protein. Meat, egg, milk should be cheap. However, some people start worry if you consume more animal proteins, they'll they got like cholesterol and everything, but animal protein definitely lower risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, colorectal, stomach, pancreatic, prostate cancer, better weight control. So in Indonesia, back in the day, we know that we call it 4 Sehat 5 Sempurna. So we got the staple food, rice, we got the veggies, we got the fruit, we got the lauk pauk, usually come from animal like egg, meat, or similar to that. And to make it good, we consume milk. So at the end, I would like to say that whether it's the or sex, consent is everything. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, sex and reproduction is supposed to be one coin with two faces. Unfortunately, some people, the technology and attitude change everything. So someone have a sex without reproduction, or someone to reproduce without having a sex. That's what we call it, assisted reproductive technology. So at the end, I would like to thanks to the committee for organizing this conference and for inviting me to share my experience in the conference. And yeah, thanks from Melbourne and from Monash University. Even though I'm in Indonesia now, but I would like to thanks to all of you. And of course, I'm happy to take any question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mulyoto, for informative and interesting presentation. Please give applause again to Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. Okay, I think our participant can wait to ask a question to Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu. It's such a wonderful insight for me also. Okay, okay, ladies and gentlemen, discussion session I will open. I'm going to open the discussion session. For all of you, can ask a question by raising your hands, or for online participant can type your question on the chat box, please. Okay, please operator can give the please mention also which speaker that your question addressed to.
Hi guys, everyone. My name is Cici. I'm from Magister Students, and today let me ask to Dr. Prasita first. All right. And my question is, Dr. Prasita.
Yep.
Is it possible to make the Chinaganthes nutrients or your extracts right now? We change it become a vaccine for breast cancer and give it earlier to the young female around 12 years old, maybe, to prevent that in the future they will be maybe they will have symptoms or even decrease the symptoms. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Okay, the thing is, this current study is at a very preliminary stage. So it has to go into in vivo and then clinical studies before it can actually be, made into a vaccine. So, I mean, it would be really nice to have that done, but we still have various studies to actually do, study this, the safety and things like that. So yeah, it's probably in the long run, but not immediately.
Okay. Do you have any feedback? Okay, thank you very much. Another question from participant, please. Okay. Go ahead. Please open the mics for your voice clearly.
Okay, thank you. My name is Priscilla from Faculty of Mathematics and Science. I would like to asking a question for Professor Mulyoto. Okay, the question is, we know that animal is naturally have ability to survive and then have reproduction. Then my question is, what about the technology? We know that I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous asking this.
You can speak in Indonesia, it's right.
Okay. My question is, animal is naturally can survive by reproducing. By the technology, now there was a born of cloning, then they can reproduce without sex. Then my question is there any negative impact by the next generation? Because we all know that everything is in this world before from the creation can do everything naturally. So what do you think the effect of the technology that can make sex and reproducing without the naturally sex itself? Do you understand what I
Okay.
Thank you. And
The question, Dr. Mulyoto?
Yes, I can hear it. Okay,
Okay.
thanks. So it's clear that when reproduction without sex, what the negative impact? Okay, it's quite interesting question because people are always asking this one to me or whenever my colleagues give a presentation about this one, and yeah, people worry that sex can be everything for reproduction. Apparently, reproduction without sex is been a common practice in Indonesian agriculture. For instance, artificial insemination is part of reproduction without sex. So a bull, a semen can be collected from a bull in Singosari, Malang, and then we send the frozen semen to anywhere in Indonesia. to Papua, from Aceh to Papua, anywhere. And then when the female cows get into estrus, into heat, instead of bringing the bull to the cows to have an intermission, we just do artificial insemination. I mean, there is no sex involved, but there is a reproductive activity because we put the frozen semen into the uterine of the female cows, which is exactly the same as when those animals having a sex or having a copulation. The next question is whether cloning is good or bad. I mean, any negative impact of that. As I mentioned earlier, cloning is copying an individual and growing into the next one as a new individual, which is similar to the original one. The problem is the clone individual always in aging. Like you clone a cow's a sheep 10 years old. So when the offspring or the lamb born from that sheep or that cows, that's offspring already 10 years old. Okay, so if the sheep lifespan is at 25 years old, 25 years, so that lamb only has another 15 years to live. The age getting shorter. Some people worry if is there any negative impact in terms of disease or body abnormality or degenerative disease or anything. Yes, it is, but not in terms of the carrying the disease to the offspring. Since they're already old, of course, there's another issue with their health and everything. On the other hand, if we do artificial insemination or embryo transfer, their age is not compromised by the age of the source, because you do artificial insemination. So whenever the calf or the lamb born, the age is still 0, because they not carry any age from the parents, because the parents come from fresh egg and fresh sperm. Now, the other question, if I collect the sperm from a bull today in 2022, and then I keep the semen for another 10 years. So I use it in 2032. So someone is going to ask him, how old is the semen? If the semen stay in the liquid nitrogen tank, stay frozen, so there is no change in the age. Once they freeze, everything stops. That's what we call it suspended animation. Anything keep in frozen or vitrified in the good protocol, their metabolic activity will be stopped and everything just stranded. Like if I have an embryo, I created the embryo say last week in July 2022, and then I freeze the embryo and I use it another 10 years. So the age of the embryo still 0. There's no change in the age. It's different to cloned embryo or cloned individual. So that's my answer. So don't be, I don't know, some people be worried about genetically modified animals or food or anything. Yes, some people are doing very extreme in genetic modification, but no, with the ethics and the proper from the regulator, so they're not doing really bad. I mean, the impact's not really damaging to the human being. So I know the issue of GMO is being spread over in the world, and people are so scary, so worried about the impact of GMO, like they're creating cancer, they're creating this. Yes, might be back in the day, but at the moment, most food we go as GMO. Some people start going to organic food and everything, but who knows, something might in that food or in the material that we eat, because not just the genetic, but the way we cook, the way we treat the food, also capable to trigger any medical issue in a human being. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer, Dr. Mulyoto. Any feedback?
Thank you so much, Professor. And I want to say sorry before, because I was so nervous to asking you.
It's okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because the time will end up, so I think this session we enough. Okay. Actually, I also have my own question. Yeah. Because the time is already 11:30. So thank you very much for all participants who attending this session, and also for our speaker. Thank you very much already joined to us. Please give applause to our speakers, ladies and gentlemen. That's new insight for us, new information about their presentation, of course. Okay, for the next activity, I'll give it back to the Master of Ceremony, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Muhammad Ade Artasasta. Well, that was our fifth plenary session from Dr. Prasita Prabakaran from Universitas Teknologi Malaysia and Dr. Mulyoto Pangestu from Monash University. Thank you for the amazing knowledge you've shared.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we step to the last plenary session, which is the sixth plenary session. Here we have Dr. Yi Fan Lin from National Tsinghua University, Dr. Hendra Susanto, SPD MCAS from Universitas Negeri Malang as the keynote speakers. And also Ms. Safatunida SSI MPD is the moderator in the session. For Ms. Safatunida, time is yours.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last session of the second day of the 5th International Conference on Life Sciences and Technology 2022. And thank you very much for the committee for inviting me to lead the session, especially to the chairwoman of this conference, Ibu Professor Sri Rahayu. And at the session, there will be two keynote speakers. The first one is Dr. Yi Fan Lin from National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. And the second one is Dr. Hendra Susanto from Universitas Negeri Malang, Indonesia. I think we already have our two keynote speakers on the line. Dr. Yi Fan Lin, am I audible?
Yes, you are perfectly clear.
Okay, thank you very much. And also Dr. Hendra Susanto. Can you hear me clearly, Dr. Hendra?
Yes, I can hear you, Dr. Nida. I'm so sorry, I'm on the way right now, actually.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind consideration to be the keynote speaker at ICALIS 2022. And Dr. Yi Fan Lin will deliver his talk for about 25 minutes, and will be continued by Dr. Hendra Susanto, who will also give the talk for 20 minutes. And after that, we will invite you for the discussion sessions. For you on the line who have some questions, feel free to type your questions and post it on the chat box. And for you who are here at the venue, please raise your hand and ask a question. And before we start, allow me to introduce the first keynote speaker of the session. Okay, Dr. Yi Fan Lin is an assistant professor at the Institute of Biotechnology, National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. And in 2000, he achieved his Bachelor of Science from National Taiwan University, Department of Zoology, Taiwan. And during his bachelor's study, he achieved recent award for German language program at Hochschule Bremen, Germany. Oh, this is very interesting. Wie finden Sie Bremen, Dr. Lin?
Yes. But it was a long time ago.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. And
My German is a little bit kaputt.
Ich auch. Ich habe mein promotiert in Uni Bremen. Okay,
Yeah.
she got her, Dr. Lin got his Master of Science at National Taiwan University, College of Medicine, Department of Molecular Medicine, Taipei. And then he completed his doctoral degree at the University School of Medicine, Developmental Genetics Program, New York. And as you can see on the screen, this is the list of his working experience and expertise. Before becoming assistant professor at the Institute of Biotechnology, National Tsinghua University, he worked as a postdoctoral research fellow, and he also had a lot of experience to be graduate assistant as well as teaching assistant. And during his works, he also published numerous publications in reputable international journals, such as shown on your screen. And then Dr. Yi Fan Lin today will talk about mitochondrial unfolded protein response in aging and tissue regeneration, as I said, for about 20 to 25 minutes, and will be followed by Dr. Hendra's talk. And at the end of the session, we will have the discussion session. Okay.
Okay, great. Should I share my screen? Okay.
Yes, the floor is yours.
Let me see. Hold on a second.
If you find any difficulties in presenting your presentation, you can ask the operator to do so.
Huh. I have trouble sharing my screen.
Okay, then
It was
help us in showing the presentation. Okay, the operator is going to play the presentation for you. We'll show the presentation. Okay, here we go.
okay. Great. Do I have the control do I have the control of the slide, or somebody have to move the slide for me?
The operator will move the slide for you.
Okay, great. Thank you, the moderator, for the very thorough and kind introduction. Again, my name is Yi Fan Lin. I'm from the National Tsinghua University from Taiwan. And today I will share with you the interest of my lab, which is a signaling pathway that controls the protection of mitochondria, called mitochondrial unfolded protein response, or UPR, mito-UPR in short. And I will particularly share two roles of this mito-UPR in aging and tissue regeneration. Next slide, please. Okay, so very long time ago, our ancestral cell took in this oxygen-loving bacteria. Eventually, they become mitochondria. Next slide, please. And we love mitochondria so much because they help us to generate energy very efficiently. So much so that over the years, our cell began to take in move genes from mitochondria DNA to our own genome. Next slide, please. Of course, when we move most of the mitochondrial gene from mitochondrial DNA to our own genome, it creates a problem, which is that now the mitochondria cannot solve its own problems. mostly mitochondrial problems are coming from, it stems from protein folding problems. So whenever that happens, when mitochondria are full of unfolded proteins, the mitochondria will send a signal to the nucleus to tell the nucleus to do something to help the protein folding issue. And then the nucleus would respond that by expressing a lot of protein chaperone genes to help mitochondria to fold protein correctly. So this is a pathway called mitochondria unfolded protein response. Next slide, please. So this pathway is most clearly studied in nematode worm C. elegans, in which there is a dual targeting, dual localization protein called ATFS1. It's a transcriptional factor. Next slide, please. So when mitochondria are under stress, this ATFS1 would travel from mitochondria to the nucleus to turn on the expression of many protein chaperone genes. You can see here in the bottom left, when this nematode C. elegans under mitochondrial stress, it would turn on this. You can see here the worms will become green. You turn on this mito-UPR fluorescent reporter. So in this case, the mitochondrial stress are coming from mild electrotransport chain mutation in the nuclear genome. So when the mitochondria are under stress, you would turn on this mitochondrial chaperone gene expression. However, there's even more remarkable result from the activation of mito-UPR, which is now this C. elegans worm, the lifespan of this C. elegans worm will extend to almost twofold. As you can see on the bottom right, the black line shows this UPR activating worm has almost twice, can live almost twice than the normal worm. So why is this the case? Next slide, please. So over the several years of study of mito-UPR response in C. elegans, we and other labs have identified a couple of genes that are under control of ATFS1 or mitochondrial UPR. They include, of course, the chaperone genes, protease genes that help the folding of the proteins in mitochondria, and also other, for example, detoxification genes, metabolic genes, and even immunity genes. So we think all those genes combined helps help the worms to live twice as long. But exactly how this works, we still not very clear. But I think the UPR actually provides a molecular insight for this phenomenon called mitochondrial homeostasis. So mitochondrial homeostasis means that when cells are initially undergo a mild stress, the stress response will be turned on. Then this upregulated stress response will help the worm, the cells or the individuals to withstand future stress, and that in turn can help the cell or the animal to live longer. So this is great, right? So this is great when we encounter mild stress. When we overcome a mild stress, it could potentially help us to face a future even greater stress and protect us from diseases or aging. Okay, next slide, please. However, when I talk about the stress, the example I gave you is a mutation, electron transport chain mutation coming from the nuclear genome. But remember, I told you that mitochondria has its own DNA. So what if the mutation is coming from mitochondria genome? We know that in humans or in a lot of animals, when animals become aged, their cells will accumulate more and more mitochondrial DNA mutations. So we wonder whether this UPR has any role in regulating mitochondrial DNA mutations, and whether UPR can have any effect on the health of cells when they have mitochondrial DNA mutations. So to answer this, try to answer this question, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. Yes. So to answer this question, we decided to use this histoplasmic C. elegans, meaning that this C. elegans worm have about part of the mitochondrial genome is this mitochondrial DNA deleted form. So in this particular worm, histoplasmic C. elegans, there are about 60% of the mitochondrial genome is this mutated form. So because of this mitochondrial DNA mutation, 60% of the genome has this mitochondrial DNA mutation. As you can see on the upper right, the worms turns on this mito-UPR reporter. You can see the worms, the right panel, the delta mtDNA, meaning the mutant mitochondrial DNA mutant worms, turns on this mito-UPR reporter. However, the mito-UPR doesn't seem to be required for the survival of this worm, as when we knock down this key regulator of mito-UPR, ATF1 with RNAi, this mito-DNA mutant worms doesn't seem to care if they don't have functional mito-UPR. Next slide, please. So then what does mito-UPR or ATF1 do to this mutant mitochondrial DNA? So when we knock down ATF1, remarkably, we saw the selectively decreasing of the mutant form of mitochondrial DNA. You can see on the left graph, the amount of mitochondrial DNA deletion, a deleted form of mitochondrial DNA, dropped to about 1/10 of the original level, which brings down the total mitochondrial DNA mutation load from 60% to 7%. And conversely, when we increase the activity of ATF1 or mito-UPR, we can selectively increase the amount of the mutant form DNA, and that in turn increase the mutation level or the mutation load from 60% to 70%. Next slide, please. So how does ATF1 or how does mito-UPR do that? So when we look more closely into the targets, the transcriptional targets of ATF1, we found several mitochondrial replication genes can be upregulated by ATF1. You can see here on the left panel, the left graph, which is an example of polymerase gamma 1, which is a mitochondria specific DNA polymerase. You can see the expression of which is upregulated when ATF1 is activity of ATF1 is high. And when we knock down polymerase gamma 1 by RNAi, which now shows on the right panel, and we can selectively bring down the level of mitochondrial DNA mutation, and that lowers the total mitochondrial DNA mutation rate from 41% to 25%. Next slide, please. So I think based on what I've shown you, I think we can conclude that with this model, which is that ATF1 or mitochondrial UPR can actually promote the propagation of mitochondrial DNA mutations, because ATF1 couples stress response and mitochondrial DNA replication. So this presumably beneficial pathway can be actually harmful in the case that when cells harbor mitochondrial DNA deletions. That can eventually explain why our aged cells, when we age, our cells will accumulate more and more mitochondrial DNA mutations. Okay, so now I want to move on to the second topic. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, which is amazing ability of tissue regeneration that can be seen in this example in zebrafish. So zebrafish is also a popular genetic animal model, and one of the area it was most studied is in tissue regeneration. You can see here. Can you play the movie? If you go down to the bottom, can you move the next slide? If you move down one slide, maybe the movie will play. If you go down to the, yes. Okay, so sorry. So this short video shows how fast this tissue regeneration can occur once you amputate the tail fin of zebrafish. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm interested in whether mitochondrial UPR is involved in or happens in this tissue regeneration process. So I'm showing you two examples. One example is what you just saw is in adult fish when fish are tail fin amputated. And the other example is in larva fish. We perform a similar amputation in the larva fish fin. But in both cases, we can see here that at the edge of the wound, you can see a bright green color, meaning that the UPR, mitochondrial UPR reporter is turned on by this tissue injury and amputation. Okay, so next slide, please. So then we want to know what might be the regulator of mitochondrial UPR, turning on mitochondrial UPR during regeneration. So we collect tissue samples from larva fish with after amputation and perform RNA-seq analysis. We found that several genes are co-regulated with mitochondrial UPR genes, and those are particularly to our interest, those are mitochondria translation genes and mitochondria transcription genes. Next slide, please. So based on this transcriptional profile, we made a guess that perhaps SIR1, this gene is SIR1 is involved in regulating mitochondrial UPR in the case during tissue regeneration, because SIR1 regulates mitochondria biogenesis, which is to make more mitochondria. And SIR1 also has been shown regulates mitochondrial UPR. I can see here in the bottom panel, if we activate SIR1 with a chemical, it can turn on mitochondrial UPR in C. elegans. Okay, next slide, please. So we answer this. We ask this question whether SIR1 is involved in tissue regeneration by actually inhibiting SIR1 with an inhibitor, NAM, and we found that indeed. When we inhibit SIR1 activity, we can successfully block the regeneration. You can see in the bottom left panel that regeneration no longer happens. And we think SIR1 does this by inhibiting mitochondrial UPR. I can see in the right panels. When we look at one feature mitochondrial UPR genes, HSPD1, which is mitochondria chaperone genes, that the expression of HSPD1 can be inhibited by this SIR1 inhibitor. Next slide, please. So then we decide to create a SIR1 mutation by using CRISPR-Cas9 technology, and we successfully generate a SIR1 mutation, but mutant fish. But to our disappointment, the SIR1 mutant fish by itself doesn't have any regeneration phenotype. You can see on the bottom, the most bottom left corner. However, we think that may be due to some sort of genetic compensations happens in this mutant fish. So we then test this by giving the SIR1 mutant fish a little bit of stress by treating them with low dose of the SIR1 inhibitor and also a low dose of doxycycline, which blocks mitochondria translation. And in both cases, in both the sort of the stressful cases, the SIR1 mutant does show a regeneration phenotype. You can see both on the graph and on the picture. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I think with that, I would conclude that the second part with this model, which is we think that tissue injury can trigger some sort of change to activate SIR1, this SIR1 gene, and SIR1 genes in turn can increase mitochondrial biogenesis and mitochondrial UPR, which allows the injured tissue to enter regeneration mode to regenerate new tissues after injury. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so I would like to finally acknowledge several of my collaborators and my funding source. And this is my lab. I just started a couple of years ago in Tsinghua. We have few people in the lab, and with that, I would thank you all for your attention. I apologize for a little bit of technical difficulties, and I would like to take any questions, or maybe questions later. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lin. That was a very nice and interesting talk. And for all the audience who are interested in Dr. Lin's talk and have some questions, please type your questions in the chat box. And later, you can also raise your hand here for the audience who come at the venue. Okay, but before we go to the discussion session, now it's time for Dr. Hendra Susanto to deliver his talk. And before that, allow me to read a brief profile about Dr. Hendra. Operator, would you please share Dr. Hendra's profile? Okay, Dr. Hendra is an assistant professor at the Department of Biology, Universitas Negeri Malang. He pursued his bachelor degree at Universitas Negeri Malang, majoring in biology, and he achieved his master degree in biomedical sciences from Universitas Brawijaya Malang, and he completed his doctoral degree in biomedical sciences and technology at the National Chiao Chuang University, Taiwan. And as listed on the screen, he has conducted a great number of research which were funded internally by or from external funding. And particularly the topic is about biomedical sciences. He has published numerous papers in reputable high-ranked international journals. Some of the latest publications are listed on the screen. Okay, if you're interested to his research, feel free to contact him personally. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today Dr. Hendra is going to talk about beta-trophin, the long-term exploration of potential biomarker for metabolic syndrome and cancer-related metabolic perturbation. Okay, Dr. Hendra will deliver his talk by video recording. That will be played by the operator.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Rector Universitas Negeri, Professor Dr. Ahmad Rafidin, the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Professor Dr. Hadi Suwono, MSI, and also the Honorable the ICOLIS Chairwoman, Professor Dr. Syahri Lestari, and also ladies and gentlemen. Today, I would like to present my speech entitled Beta-trophin, the long-term exploration of potential biomarker for metabolic syndrome and cancer-related metabolic perturbation. In my speech, I have several steps here. I mean, like the outline, the introduction, method, findings, and conclusion, and future recommendation. My speech related to the main project that I was done with my former lab members. As you know that metabolic syndrome is the kind of metabolic abnormalities, and it is common related to the insulin resistance, central or abdominal obesity, whereas more than 20 to 25% the population worldwide got metabolic syndrome, and how to ensure that all of us go to the metabolic syndrome stage. We can confirm it by using several markers, including the body weight, which means that if our body already passed the normal standard or excess related to the fat accumulation, it will go to the metabolic syndrome. Also, it will related to the high plasma glucose level, high triglyceride level, high blood pressure, like hypertension or something like that, and also the low circulating level of HDL, high density lipoprotein. Obesity itself is the abnormality within the human body that very strongly associated with the excessive fat accumulation, which is the increase of adipose tissue mass will trigger our body go to the obesity. Why it happened? Because obesity itself, as the common metabolic diseases in worldwide, is significantly linked with the energy imbalance, which means the energy intake and the energy dissipation is imbalanced. So obesity itself nowadays become the new trend in our population, particularly in Asian population. As the consequences of the obesity incident within our population, it will drive the condition go to the insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, type 2 diabetes mellitus, and very interestingly, obesity also has strong correlation with hepatocellular carcinoma, which means the excess of body weight in the individual will enhance the individual with obesity go to the cancer, and probably will stimulate the increase of cancer mortality in the population. The basic pathomechanism of obesity itself will link to the inflammation, which is some of the fundamental biomarker such as reactive oxygen species, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and also the molecular signaling pathway related to the GNK1. It will stimulate the increase of inflammation stage in the individual. Also, obesity will marked by the increase of triglyceride level in the circulation, which means it will modulate, it will trigger the individual go to the next step. And obesity itself is very possible related to the increase of plasma glucose level, that all together will drive this situation to the next step, like the increase of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, also the insulin resistance, and chronic hyperglycemia. Our body tries to compensate this condition by increase the production of insulin or something like that. But sometimes the beta cell is failures to anticipate this metabolic perturbation, and as the result, it will go to the type 2 diabetes mellitus, that also we called non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is the strong inducer for the metabolic imbalance in our population. The WHO mentioned that it's more than 100 million people in the world will develop to the diabetes mellitus. So we try to combat this disease because nowadays the diabetes prevalence is very significantly increased more rapidly in the middle or even in the low income countries. So diabetes mellitus, obesity is not only the disease related to the developed country, but also in the low income countries. So it will be predicted that in the 2030, diabetes mellitus probably will go to the 7th leading cause of death worldwide. And how the metabolic syndrome can associate with the cancer development. Some previous investigation has mentioned that the increase of type 2 diabetes mellitus prevalence and also BMI in our population, it will go to the increase of risk of cancer, including liver, pancreas, or maybe like another gastrointestinal cancer, and also increase the cancer death in the population is more than 10 to 20%. So obesity to insulin resistant is the main trigger in the population related to the metabolic perturbation and increase the incidence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and also hepatocellular carcinoma, which means the viral infection is not only alone, the metabolic perturbation can also induce the cancer development related to the metabolic syndrome. And how the obesity and insulin resistance can regulate the cancer development. Also, several investigations has claimed that increase the inflammation, the decreasing of insulin sensitivity, which means that the cell cannot uptake the glucose in the normal condition, so it go to the insulin resistance, and also it will enhance the increase of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease incidence, and all together will work through the AKT, the protein kinase B, GNK1, and STAT3 signaling pathway to modulate the cell proliferation and metastasis, and also the angiogenesis process, and decrease the apoptosis. And the final consequences, it will drive to the hepatocellular carcinoma development. In our previous work, we try to focus to beta-trophin and metabolic syndrome. Why beta-trophin? Because this is the major liver drive hormone that produced in the hepatocytes and has a strong correlation with the lipid metabolism, in particular with the triglyceride metabolism and also triglyceride transport from the circulation to the cells. So which means that beta-trophin is the regulator for lipid metabolism, and some previous studies has mentioned that increase the beta-trophin was founded in the human obesity with type 2 diabetes mellitus and positively correlated with the type 1 diabetes mellitus, type 2 diabetes mellitus, and insulin resistance index. And very interestingly, when the beta-trophin is knocked out from the animal model, it will trigger the increase of lipoprotein lipase, the enzyme that potentially regulate the triglyceride transfer from the circulation into the cells, which means the increase of beta-trophin level in the human or even in an animal circulation will decrease the lipoprotein lipase expression and will modulate the increase of triglyceride level and go to the hypertriglyceridemia. Probably will go to the chronic hypertriglyceridemia. So we try to build our hypothesis that beta-trophin probably has a strong correlation with the metabolic incident, and in case the beta-trophin will more express in hepatocyte and also the circulating level of beta-trophin in the human body or even in animal will go to the higher level, it will accelerate the obesity related to the hypertriglyceridemia, type 2 diabetes mellitus, or even cancer development. So in our experimental design, we tried to develop some of the preclinical, animal model, and clinical study. For the first one, we tried to develop the animal study model. We used the MIR-122 knockout mice that induced with normal chow and high-fat diet for during 3 months, for 3 months, and we try to figure out what will happen after the treatment in this kind of knockout mice. The second one, we try to develop the clinical study by using the human sample. I mean, we try to collaborate with the hospital, the diabetic nephropathy individual with chronic type 2 diabetes mellitus involved in this study. We try to figure out the beta-trophine level in the urine and also serum, and try to compare between the healthy individual with normal albuminuria, microalbuminuria, and also macroalbuminuria. The third one, we also try to use the clinical study model by involving the pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma patient with normal glucose, with impaired glucose, and also with diabetes mellitus. And absolutely, we try to compare with the healthy subject as the placebo. The next one, we also try to use the chronic hepatitis C patient that developed to hepatocellular carcinoma. We try to compare the beta-trophine level within their circulation between the healthy subject compared to the chronic hepatitis C patient with ACC symptoms. And the last one, we are going to develop the kind of physical exercise treatment. So this is the non-clinical study. We try to involve to the non-professional athlete, and we provide them several kind of treatment, including the high intensity exercise, medium intensity exercise, and also medium intensity exercise with the musical co-treatment. Also, we try to figure out what will happen in this individual when we use this kind of treatment to the beta-trophine level post the treatment. The first finding, we found that deliver beta-trophine expression in our animal model in the MIR-122 knockout mice with normal chow and even with high fat diet, the beta-trophine expression significantly increased compared to the placebo. Also, we try to analyze by the microscopic analysis. Here in the right panel, especially for the right upper and also the right corner here, we can compare the wild type mice with the MIR-122 knockout mice. We also found that the severe fatty liver in this animal when we induce with the high fat diet, and also the beta-trophine level is significantly increased compared to the placebo. We found the significant finding in the clinical study, whereas the beta-trophine levels were steadily increased in patient, I mean in the diabetic nephropathy patient with the severe albuminuria. As we can see in the serum level here, we can see that by using the different kind of kits for the full length and also for C-terminal kit to detect the beta-trophine level within the circulation, we can see that increase beta-trophine in this patient linear to the severity of the albuminuria, especially in diabetic nephropathy. The next one, we try to analyze whether the beta-trophine also has the correlation with some kind of the serological marker, and we found that beta-trophine in this patient has a strong correlation with triglyceride, total cholesterol, fasting blood glucose, BMI, and etc. So this is the primary finding of our project in the previous investigation. And interestingly, the beta-trophine also increase in this patient and has a correlation with some parameter, including like the duration of DM, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and smoking history, which mean probably this kind of risk factor also has a correlation, has an interconnection with the beta-trophine level in the diabetic nephropathy patient. And for the next project in the clinical study, we found that the beta-trophin level were significantly higher in pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma patient with diabetes mellitus, or even in impaired glucose tolerance and normal glucose tolerance compared to the healthy subject. This is the first time we try to figure out what's going on within this patient when they go to the pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma stage, and also has the kind of different of the glucose level within their circulation. So very interestingly, again, we found that the beta-trophin level is increased in the pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma patient with diabetes mellitus, impaired glucose tolerance, or even in normal glucose tolerance. To confirm, we try to make the cross-check by using the immunohistological data here. As you can see in the 100 and 400 magnification, the linear data is still the same with the previous one, which is whereas the beta-trophin level, the beta-trophin expression in the pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma subject with different glucose level will steadily increase, especially in the PDAC patient with DM. That confirmed by the strong brown color in the histological section. Also, we have another data that beta-trophin in the PDAC patient also has a correlation with some serological marker, including lipase, amylase, albumin, cholesterol, and also another classical marker for cancer, CA19-9. So the next step, we try to compare the sensitivity and also specificity between beta-trophin and CA19 to become the predictor, to become the biomarker for PDAC. Very interestingly, we found that beta-trophin itself has the strong sensitivity and specificity to predict the PDAC development in patients with diabetes mellitus, impaired glucose tolerance, and also normal glucose tolerance compared to the classical marker CA19. And we try to combine together. They had a strong cooperation between beta-trophin and the CA19 to become the marker, the biomarker for PDAC development. That confirmed by the area under curve score here, that closely to the 0.988. And for the next analysis, we also try to make further analysis by using the regression, and we found that the beta-trophin itself can predict the various stage of glucose tolerance in PDAC patient. Then as we can see here, the beta-trophin has the odds ratio at 3.39 and strongly significant to predict the various stages of glucose tolerance, which means it's probably beta-trophin can also can be proposed, as the biomarker for PDAC development related to the glucose tolerance stage in the individual with PDAC. And very interestingly, and in our clinical study, we found that the beta-trophin level has a linear pattern with the increase of ALT and AST, both of the serological marker here. ALT and AST is the classical marker for liver injury and for liver cancer. We only hypothesize that beta-trophin probably also positively has association with the severity of HCC related to chronic hepatitis C incidence, and probably will linear to the increase of both classical marker ALT and AST in the patient with chronic hepatitis C developed to the ACC stages. And when we try to make a model by using the exercise, the physical exercise, here we try to treat the non-professional athletes by moderate intensity exercise and also with musical co-treatment. We also try to figure out what will happen when we try to treat them by using the moderate intensity exercise during a 30-minute treatment. Very interestingly, the beta-trophine level is significantly decreased in moderate intensity and also with moderate intensity combined or co-treated with music. We still don't know yet what will happen later when we try to use this kind of exercise to combating the metabolic syndrome related to the beta-trophine. But here, the preliminary data from our non-clinical study improved that the circulating level of beta-trophine was significantly decreased post the moderate intensity exercise, or even with the moderate intensity exercise with musical co-treatment. This is also the data for the correlation between beta-trophine with several baseline characteristics in the patient, in the individual. Also, we can see here in our regression analysis, beta-trophine itself can predict the energy expenditure, the triglyceride level, or even some kind of marker for the muscle metabolism, rising in PGC1 alpha in the non-professional athlete here, that confirm the estimate value. This is related to the odds ratio of the beta-trophine, how this hormone can predict the energy expenditure, the triglyceride level, or even the rising in PGC1 alpha in their circulation. So actually we still don't know yet whether the moderate intensity exercise in our initial model can combat the obesity metabolic syndrome by decrease or by inhibit the beta-trophine expression and also the beta-trophine level in the circulation. Because as we know that beta-trophine itself can inhibit the lipoprotein lipase activity and will increase the triglyceride accumulation. And from our previous data that in the diabetic nephropathy patient, the increase of beta-trophine will modulate the accumulation of triglycerides, decrease the estimated glomerular filtration rate, and also increase the albumin loss and increase the albumin to creatinine ratio that will go to the macroalbuminuria as the main marker for diabetic nephropathy. And on the other hand, we also found that when the beta-trophine expression is increased in the individual, especially in patient with cancer symptom or even with type 2 diabetes mellitus and also obesity, will go to the probably will go to the tissue lipotoxicity. Why? Because it will increase the fatty acid accumulation in the organ or even in tissue, and will modulate the tumor growth and cancer stem cell proliferation, and probably will go to the cancer associated with the metabolic perturbation related to the metabolic syndrome and beta-trophine itself. So in our conclusion, we only have two main points here, that the serum level of beta-trophine may provide an opportunity to be a potential biomarker for microvascular complication or even in early stages of cancer development. And probably beta-trophine in the future may become the potential target against metabolic syndrome and gastrointestinal cancer linked to the metabolic perturbations. I would like to thank to my former supervisor, Dr. Chi Hong Wang, and also my best colleague, Dr. Chen from the National Taiwan University Hospital, Hsinchu branch, and also my lab mates in the Molecular Metabolic Medicine Department of Biological and Technology, National Chiang Tung University, Hsinchu, Taiwan, Republic of China. So I would like to thank to my former supervisor too, because Professor Oliver Smith is the supervisor of my mentor, Dr. Chi Hong Wang. Also, I would like to sincere my gratitude, and also I want to acknowledge all my former supervisor in Mamerin, Professor Dr. Rashad Indra, Dr. Tini, Professor Kiai Ahmad Imam Mawardi, and also Professor Oleni Am, Professor Hadisono, Dr. Zukalto, Professor Taufik, Professor Alino, my junior doctor candidate, Mr. Wirakauta, and my best colleague, Dr. Siriani, Dr. Siriwa, Dr. Ahmad Nizam, and also Dr. Jerry Purnomo from ITS. Maybe this is the last slide from my talk today. Hope you enjoyed the simple presentation, of my talk. And again, thank you very much for the best opportunity to present my project, my finding from all our laboratory project in the 5th International Conference of Life Sciences and Technology, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Malang 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hendra, for a very insightful talk. Okay, now we come to the discussion session. We invite all of the audience who have questions to raise your hand and ask the question, please. The audience here at the venue. Any questions to our keynote speakers? Okay, it seems that we still don't have any questions from the audience here at the venue, and as well as the audience in the Zoom link. Okay, due to the very limited time, we have to end the session. And for you who have still any questions, our two speakers, please feel free to ask the questions. Maybe you can reach them personally through email. Okay, and thank you very much once again to Dr. Lin for the very interesting talk about the mitochondrial unfolded protein response to address the decline of mitochondrial function during aging and its potencies in promoting tissue regeneration. Dr. Lin also explained us about the interesting link between anti-aging signaling and tissue regeneration. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Lin. And also would like to say thank you, Dr. Hendra, who has nicely talked about the potential biomarkers beta-catenin, which plays important role in the pathogenesis of metabolic disorder as well as cancer development. Okay, let us give a big applause to our two keynote speakers. Okay, now I hand over to our Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ms. Safatun Nida. Well, there was our 6th plenary session from Dr. Yi Fanling from National Tsinghua University and Dr. Hendra Susanto, SPD MKIS from Universitas Negeri Malang. Thank you for the amazing knowledge you shared.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to the next step of the agenda, which is the announcement. And now we would like to announce the best presenter of ICOLIS 2022.
For the first best presenters of ICOLIS 2022, congratulations to Ms. Aziza Nur Rohma from Department of Biology Universitas Negeri Malang.
For the second best presenters, congratulations for Ms. Dia Retno Wulandari from Research Center for Genetic Engineering National Research Innovation Agency, National Integrated for Genomic Tropical Biodiversity and Environment.
The third, congratulations to Renaldi Dwi Saputra, Department of Biology Universitas Negeri Malang.
The fourth, congratulations for Mr. Ringga Satria Putra from Department of Biology, Universitas Negeri Malang.
The fifth, congratulations to Rizky Fitria, Department of Chemistry, Lambung Mangkurat University.
And the last, the sixth, congratulations for Dr. Nurlaili Susanti M. Biomed from Doctoral Program of Medical Science, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Airlangga. All right, for the presenters who are joining with us right now, please go to the front, take picture together. All right, for the head of Department of Biology, Dr. Sri Rahayu, we invite you to take photos together. All right, thank you, and give a big round of applause for all the best presenters. All right, I think several best presenters are joining online in the Zoom meeting. So I also would like to say congratulations again for them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time flies so fast. After all of these great sessions we have had, now this is the end of ICOLIS 2022. We hope all of you have a delightful time and new knowledge from this conference. We, as the Master of Ceremony, would like to say thank you and very much for your participation. And see you in ICOLIS 2023. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Baiklah, sekali lagi kami beritahukan kepada seluruh peserta dan juga tamu undangan bahwasanya acara hari ini telah berakhir. Kepada seluruh peserta dan tamu undangan dipersilahkan untuk meninggalkan ruangan. Terima kasih.